This conference will now be recorded.
All right, it is 8:05. Please silence your cell phones and stand for the pledge of allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Welcome to the September 3rd work session for the Waseca Board of Commissioners. Michael.
Thanks, Mr. Chair, Commissioners. Christie will be along here shortly, but if not, we can jet down the hall and try to find it. But maybe ahead of time, if the Commissioners have any particular questions or information you'd like to go over, and have you received the information of the anticipated or proposed budget recommendations from U of M Extension, the narrative itself, about what that looks like and the policies that are being adopted in Minneapolis and pushed out to their extension coordinators across the state. We've had some conversation on that locally in our own committees as well, but ultimately has to come back to you in form of a memorandum of agreement for 2025 through 2027. So at the end of this year, of course, that MOA is expired. It's something that have to be put into place between now and the end of the year to commit to what that wage package would look like. Not sure if you have any specific questions that you want to go over on this first. Clearly that's Christie is more insightful to answer some of the methodology and directive behind the scenes as far as that is concerned as well. Any more broad questions on the MOA itself, even if not the budget narrative pertaining to the MOA yet? From those that sit on that respective committee and have had more direct conversations or like.
It was brought up at our last meeting. I think when that was it April? No, it would have been July, I would say, yeah, July's meeting. Discussion came about with request for an additional part-timer to assist with the activity. In Waseca County, I'm listed in all of that. And it proposed a half-timer for an educator to help alleviate some of the other things that the full-time person was having to allow more time with the students to allow you to participate during farming season, to farmers market season, to engage in year-round activities. I guess that's to help offset some of that. I think everybody got a copy of that email with the information on that. And it's to help expand the educational opportunities that are offered in the community for the club model for the most part. Help focus more on some teens to get involved, which opens up a little bit more for the aim to do more for activity that needs to be done as far as the reporting to the state.
Would I be correct in my understanding from a high level that part of what is driving this is the need to raise wages in more the urban areas to fund these where wages are higher, and they have to equalize that across the state?
I think that was the idea behind it during our discussion.
Okay.
And again, it's like anywhere else. It's, the jumping ship to go higher wages and different benefits. And the state pushes down to say, well, let's try to keep some of our people that are in place there without having them disappear.
Sure.
Unfortunately, it's just the time of our, it's the time that we're in, and everybody wants to move their money someplace else, and we try to keep the people we can that are good at it.
Yes. I don't know if you I'll look at the Mankato paper, but there was an article yesterday, the day before. Is it Louisville Sewer that's sharing extension educator? And they are not solid on bringing the shared position back between the two counties.
Is that the ag educator?
I think so. I think that's that.
So I don't know what else they have for extension besides an ag educator, but
Yeah, the ag educator positions have often been shared between counties.
we had some discussion about an ag educator a couple of years ago.
Yeah, they chatted with me for a while. We looked very high level at sharing with 2 other counties, so between 3 counties, but decided it wasn't necessary.
So this proposed 25 budget that we got back on the 29th of July, it's not finished, right? I mean, you've got it in this. Well,
Yeah.
the total dollars for 25 budget, but in this, there's a lot of blanks.
So what you have on the screen there would have been information that gets inputted into Munis that Christie wouldn't know how to calculate. So those would have been the county-specific costs, because we employ Sarah Hiniker that works on behalf of Extension, but is truly a county employee. And you have Amy Nelson, who resides in our spaces, but isn't a county employee, is a U of M employee. That is more so what makes up this 159,000, which entails Amy and summer staff as well. So in the current MOA, we pay for 360 hours of intermittent staff, summer staff. That request was to increase it to 400, in addition to the other half-time FTE that Commissioner Milbreath was mentioning earlier. So it's currently Amy and 360 hours of intern. The ask is Amy, half-time FTE, and 400 hours of summer intern, in addition to Sarah. So these blanks up here that you would see are pertaining to our employee specifically.
Because that Amy's, yeah, she gets insurance or compensation from the state. So that's all in that text there.
Yes, that is correct.
So what was did they just blanket across the state a percentage increase?
I think it was statewide, yes.
So
If I recall.
Metro,
Everybody got the same.
everybody got the same.
Yeah.
And that's probably where most of their issues were people were leaving.
I guess there was discussion, I just don't remember where you're all going. I think there was some out of the metro.
We didn't get any specific, here's what our turnover rate is and why we're making these changes, but it was something like 20%-ish flat increase for all of their educators.
Similar to what they did at corrections.
So I'm just pulling up our version of this budget quick so you can see what I'm talking about. I emailed Christie and Amy to see if they're running behind, so I'll let you know if I get an update there too.
Is you guys that are on the committee, and I just recently gotten off that committee, is there that much growth? I mean, I know they've been increasing 4-Hers and stuff over the past several years, but is it to the point of 40 more hours and another half-time person?
I think it's, yes, I think there's just some different things that have come down that are more, I would say not mandatory, but you need to lead the younger youth, keep them more involved. And I think that's where some of that comes into play, and there's more reporting requirements. I'm saying that right, I wish Christie was here to help with that, but,
I have a hard time with a 20% salary increase and then add help. Seems like you should work harder to get that kind of a raise.
I understand that, and again, it goes back to, you know, the times that we're in, and just trying to keep people, good people, where you want.
Looking for something to- Yeah, I thought I had that information from when we were up at your AMC meeting.
Yeah.
Because we got that whole folder of
Yeah.
that breakdown, and I don't think it deterred much from what we received that.
Yeah, it's the same
I
thing.
thought I had it here, but I'm gonna, do they, so the extra 40 hours, which is huge, from 360 to 400, and I don't know that we need to get that far in the weeds, do they give a breakdown of what they're actually trying to accomplish?
With that position,
Yeah,
not really. I mean, the easy answer is kind of all over the timeline of prepare, helping to prepare ahead of the county fair, helping in the 4-H program specifically. And where exactly that starts and stops respective to Sarah's position, I wouldn't be able to intelligently say. But in the many times walking by, I often see Sarah working on those things, put them together.
yeah.
A lot of swag bags and things from a 4-H standpoint and fair standpoint. And she's the one that's working the bulk of the hours as well over the fair week. So that's kind of I don't know that it's really confusing per se, but it's part of the narrative because, you know, we're also creating the expectation and compensating based upon that expectation that she's working 100 some hours plus over that pay period for the fair itself, because she's the one facilitating the booth in most cases. So when we look at the cost of the MOA versus the actual budget, just as that reminder, the MOA, we're really only talking about the 159,000. There are some other supplemental things, as you saw in that other spreadsheet, that do pertain to extension that they request. But the bulk of that obviously is the profit tax services. But the total budget line is $251,000 pertaining to U of M extension.
I do think, and I appreciate your thoughts on both of it, on this. I do know that there is a change in programming that has been, Amy has done, she did a fabulous job dealing with COVID and keeping families and kids engaged. And since that time, the change in programming has been fairly significant. In addition to all the fair stuff, she now has regular things going on with elementary schools at their SAC programs. I don't know how many times a week that is, how long that goes on, but that's like STEM education. I think there's significant other programming that is a recent addition. When we look at this holistically in the model that we're doing, there's new and different things happening and additional things happening compared to what happened the previous. Am I right?
Yeah, and I think that's what the part-timer are gonna do, is go back to the schools and deal mostly with some of the younger, to keep them engaged and get those programs moving.
Mhm.
Amy's job is more going to expand for careers and try to get those programs up and running, get the older individuals involved. And get those, there's different programs that, even through Minnesota Valley Action, you got some programs out there for A, to take them to trips, to show them, you can do this, to keep them engaged for that, I'm trying to think of the word that I want to use for it, but it's the different that are out there.
Sure.
So I think that's where that kind of comes into place. So Amy can focus more on some of the programming that's going to come about to keep the olders involved in the A instead of letting it disappear, and then the part-timer would be more involved in the younger kids to keep them involved in
Okay.
the classes or the different programs that are available.
That have recently developed.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, Amy was still bringing input for the POC program.
Yes.
Oh, yes.
Yes.
So maybe there's
I think that's where some of that comes into play for that, the part of half-time.
I know that she has put considerable work into the rural produce too. And that being said, I mean, her wage, that's dictated by, we don't have control over that. And it seems to me that the work she's doing is expanding, whether it's expanding as much as outstate wages to justify that. But that's what it's gonna cost us. I think the big question is, how much help does she need? How many of these programs do you think are important that they continue? Because, yeah, if she's doing power produce, if she's gonna be more involved in ag workforce development, and coordinating that, if there are more reporting requirements from you, then we want her to be doing the things that only she can do. And then we want to pay somebody to do the other things if we think they're important enough at a wage that is more commensurate with doing that work. And she runs the thing, she knows the programs, that's where her expertise needs to be most engaged.
Well, we have to.
Well, is there any, if we thought she needed more help, can we, the county, hire that half-time person? Because right now it's proposed to have another state contract, right? It would be a state employee that half-time, or would it be a county employee?
That's a good question. I don't know that that's been defined really. I was in my brain was interpreting it as the state employee because it is specifically covered under the MOA. Like Sarah's wages, for example, are not covered under the MOA. We don't have any compulsion to staff that position other than the cited need from the county. And if you recall, a few years ago when Susie retired, that was a conversation. And at the time, we initially looked at moving it down to a half-time FTE. And at that current point in time, Amy was out of the office for a little bit of time as well. And eventually ratcheted that up to 0.8 and eventually put that back to 1.0 when we inhabited this space over here too. And I don't know where or if at all, I would be surprised if at all that has entered the conversation of this MOA as a whole. Each county, I'm sure, approaches this a little bit differently. And I don't have a good grasp on county, what those individual counties are hiring or employing for supplementary services to U of M Extension or supplementary to the MOA. I mean, it's obviously happening, but to this extent, I'm not sure. And I would I would be very confident that it's not happening in every county. They're all hiring a separate dedicated FTE supplemental to this MOA.
I just can't. If it's our employee, then we're paying according to a living wage here in Waseca. And the state just ramming down our throat what they think This 20% increase just drives me crazy, and I don't want another state contract. I don't want to pay another state contract.
So then here too, you see that halftime FTE is covered in that MOA cost that was mentioned. That's what was leading me to believe that this was a state hired employee. It sounds like Christy was on her way, so she should stroll in any second. So, good questions to pose. Hi, Christy.
Good morning.
You can come right up, Christy. So we were just walking through the proposed MOA, going over some of the budgetary changes. Question that was just posed, which is going to be a good introduction. The additional half-time FTE that was requested as part of the contract,
Yes.
clarifying that that is proposed to be a U of M employee opposed to
Yes.
county employee.
Yeah, and I can talk about that. I was just like, did you need me here earlier than anything?
It's all good.
Okay.
So,
The way my day is not, I would be really surprised.
Don't stress over it, we're all good.
So yes, the additional halftime position that is proposed would be an additional University of Minnesota Extension hire. In the handout that I gave you, just if I can take a few minutes just to kind of walk through what the purpose of the agreement is. I know that some of you were able to hear a presentation that we did at the AMC district meeting, but just to kind of refresh memories, because I don't know about all of you, that seems like forever ago. So we are currently in the last year of our 3-year contract between Waseca County and University of Minnesota. And we have been in this process of doing a memorandum of agreement, or MOA, for about 20 years now, where we negotiate with all 87 counties at the same time.
Oh, you're good.
Oh, okay.
Just saying.
All 87 counties at the same time. And the agreement that we're going to be talking about was developed in partnership with the Association of Minnesota Counties Extension Committee. And so I'm just going to walk through these slides that I gave you just real briefly to give you a little bit of background. As I said, the terms of the agreement are the same, regardless if we are in Waseca County, Hitson County, or anywhere in between. And so we do this just for consistency across the board. And the agreement that we're going to talk about today is what allows Extension to provide services within all 87 counties. And really the county's contribution to Extension as a whole is about 23% of our budget. And I share that with you just because as we talk about the positions, we use those dollars that come from the counties to ensure that we are providing adequate, good programming within our counties, but we also balance that with our own extension budget that I do have included in these slides. Because the positions are not, it takes more than what the counties provide in order to make sure that we are meeting our obligations. And so we use a lot of our own dollars from those state and federal allotments to make sure that we're providing the essential services that are needed through extension programs. Now, the contract that we have allows you to make decisions about what level of service you want in your county. And so even though the pricing structure that we'll talk about in a few minutes is consistent across the state, you as a board of commissioners have the ability to make a decision about what type of service or what level of service you want to see. And the proposal that I'm going to share with you that is coming from the Waseca County Extension Committee will also kind of talk about that, and I can explain why they're making the recommendation to add this additional halftime position. As you have been able to hear from Amy Nelson when she has made visits to be in front of the board, We have a very strong program here in Waseca County. Extension is well utilized here. We have a lot of active participation, both in our community club models as well as just the community outreach work and after-school programming that happens. And so we have a lot of really good impacts that we're able to see. Now, as we talk about the specific agreement that Michael so kindly has up here on the screen, this is a 3-year agreement. So we're looking at 2025, 26, and 27. And if you look at the back of the second page of the handout I provided you, it gives an overview of what is all included in this document as far as the university contributions. So we, as a university, take on the responsibility of hiring the educators that are paid for through this agreement, as well as the supervision, staff development, and professional development for these individuals. We ensure that there is enhanced programming that comes into the county from state and regional educators. That includes supports that our youth development educator, Amy Nelson, receives to make sure that she has broad programming so that she is able to meet all the needs of youth across the county. Ensuring that there is access to university research, providing all of the insurance for programming. So county fair, think about all of those youth and adults that need to be insured when they're out doing those activities. Extension provides the insurance for that, as well as any day camps or other programming that we do. Handling all of the agreements and contract management, and then also the payroll and accounting services, including mileage reimbursements. So we do not come back to the county asking for any additional reimbursements for any of these university hired positions. It's an all in when we look at this package price. The agreement also lays out the county contributions, which is that administrative support that Waseca County has agreed to hire. Sarah in our office is a county hired position at 40 hours a week, and we're very appreciative of that, as well as the office space, furnishings, supplies, and equipment, as well as that internet access that all comes to you through our annual departmental budget. Now, as far as looking at the new agreement for the next 3 years, there are some changes. We have clarified the county extension committee roles. So really identifying that committee guides the programs that happen and that they provide program evaluation on an annual basis. And that's something that hasn't been clearly stated in previous agreements. We also have added on to each agreement the program deliverables that every county can expect with the programs that they determine they want to provide for the county, as well as making changes to some language. So in the past, we have referred to summer interns and summer coordinators. We're getting rid of that language and just going to a temp casual position. And so that is also reflected in this new agreement. The biggest change is certainly the price. And so this is the bottom slide on your third page. We have, due to a variety of factors that I'll get into next, made some increases to our package price so that our local educator is at $100,000 in the first year of this contract. Master Gardener Coordinator, which is not a position that we currently have, also increased, as well as administrative support. If Waseca County were ever interested in having the administrative support be a U-hired position, a university hired position, that is something that is available to you. We also cover the cost of that, and so that also did go up. And then our intern price, or that temp casual position that will be referred to now, saw an increase as well in this new contract. As we talk about the contract, yes.
So those numbers, do you know what the percent increase was on those flat?
Yes, so from going from 2024 to 2025, it is a 23.8% increase. And then each additional year, so 26 and 27, there's a 3% increase on top of that. And one of the reasons, or some of the reasons for that increase, because I acknowledge and recognize that that's a jump. Some of the reasons that we have had to make that increase in the first year of this contract were really because we listened to the commissioners that were serving on the AMC Extension Committee who were concerned about the turnover that we have seen across the state in our youth development positions. We've been fortunate that we have not experienced that here in Waseca County. However, Amy is definitely underpaid in her position, despite the years of service, because Extension has not kept up with wage increases the way that we needed to. And so in order for us to right the ship, if you will, and to be able to get our employees where they needed to be, we've had to make some wage adjustments already. So we made wage adjustments in 2023 and again in 2024, and we did not pass those costs on to the county at that time. We worked to absorb those within our own current budget. However, moving forward, we needed to add that back into the package price. We've also seen extreme jumps in our benefit costs, which I know counties have seen as well. Those increases in the last year have been dramatic. And so that's also something that had to be factored into the package price moving forward. We also, just as a reminder, this package price that you have in front of you is all of those fringe benefits. So it's all of their insurance, their mileage, their professional development, staff development, all of those things that really make that a desirable package for any employee to want to work for the university. And then lastly, just with all of this, as we have taken a look at the pricing structure of this all-in package price, we've really worked to make sure that we are in a good place in 2027, so that when I come back to you and we start negotiating the next 3 years, it is not as big of a jump as what we're having to come to you with right now. And so we do feel like we are in a better place moving forward as we project out for 2027, that we won't be looking at this kind of an increase moving forward. So as we look at what the current package is here in Waseca County, and this is the last page of the handout I provided you, currently we have a 1.0 FTE youth development educator that in 2024, the annual cost for that is $80,648. And then we have an intern who is with us for 360 hours, and that comes out to $5,659. So Waseca County's current investment is $86,307 for those services. In conversation with the Extension Committee back in June, as we were talking about kind of what the goals for the committee are, what they would like to see as expanding services across the county, hearing about the great outreach that is happening and the opportunity to do even more that is more community-based, reaching into our underserved populations. The recommendation was made to come forward to the board with a 1.5 youth development. So we would have one full-time and one half-time youth development educator. And so that would be a package price of $150,000. And then also increasing the intern or that temp casual, giving them an additional 40 hours just because it gets really tight for that summer staff towards the end of the summer. And so to be able to add in a few additional hours and go up to 400 hours, and that would then bring us to a total of 9,025 for that position. So looking at 2025 as a total investment of $159,025.
So this halftime person, I assume you would match that person up with another county that you would spend half the time at?
Potentially. We do have some half-time positions that are standalones, but we, often hear from folks that they would really like to be benefits eligible, which for us is at a 75%. And so we may look to other counties that are hoping to expand their program services as well.
And then the follow-up with that, is there any counties or is there a possibility that we would employ that halftime person and not U of M?
No.
You won't allow that?
Well, I mean, we could certainly, I'm sorry, I misunderstood the question. We could certainly have conversations about that.
Okay.
But the way that the MOA is written at this point in time, we would be essentially contracting between Waseca County and the university to hire that position.
And I'm just wondering if any other counties, like we've got the Sarah administrator, we added that halftime and we paid her.
Yeah.
And it wasn't in the MOA, then it would just be an agreement, that we would employ that extra help.
That's a really good question. I am not aware of any counties that do it that way. But if that's something that Waseca County is interested in doing, I can do some research and come back to this board with a better answer.
My question is, this extra 0.5 is a youth development educator. So you're hiring another teacher, you're not hiring a para
No.
or office staff here. I think that's the level, I think that's the dividing line. Do we need more support, clerical help, or do we need another half-time educator?
Right.
Okay, thank you for that clarification.
Am I understanding this
Yes,
correctly?
yes, we are hiring another educator, a half-time educator. So this person would have that youth development expertise to be able to work with our youth, provide teaching, training, program development, creating new curriculum. One thing that I think Amy has been very passionate about is the audience that she sees through the POP program that they currently do during the summer, and is directed more towards kids that are coming. It's Power Produce is the name of it, but that is happening out at the farmer's market. What they're seeing there is that with this program, because they're able to give some supplemental dollars so that kids can go and purchase produce, they're seeing that it's drawing in a different type of participant, a lower income kids that maybe haven't necessarily had access to 4-H or youth development programming in the past. And there's a really great opportunity to spend some more time and effort reaching that population, doing some programming that doesn't happen just during the summer. Being able to do, she has this great program that she created during COVID that's a supper club that right now is kind of more focused. It tends to be our kids that are involved in our 4-H community club programs. But this outreach worker would be able to take that and adapt that to be able to reach into new audiences, our lower income audiences, go to them because they might not have some of those resources to join an online program. And so that's really where we see this half-time position spending their time and energy.
I think over, how that, I guess, can you explain how that's gonna take, help Amy one way with the park, the 0.5?
Absolutely. So currently, when we look at Amy's program schedule, her plate is very full, if coming off the plate. And there are a lot of requests to expand our agricultural programming because there's a huge interest in really getting our kids more strongly connected to, learning more about agricultural careers and kind of developing those interests and that kind of thing. That is not something that she has the ability to add in or to expand what she's currently offering. We have really reached her max. If we are going to look to expand any more, to do any additional outreach, we need to have another educator come alongside her and do that. We were able to see that during the summer, having an intern who Amy guided, we were able to kind of chip away at some other projects. Amy could have that intern go into a day camp and she could spend a day working on curriculum. If we think about taking that one step further, if we have somebody who is trained in youth development and can do that work, they can be working to develop stronger curriculum to reach more youth rather than feeling like we're kind of capped where we're at right now.
I guess that's the question, is what level of service do we want? Do we continue to add programs? Or does she do what she can with the programs she has? Don't fill that plate up so much that it's overflowing. Reach as many people as we can with it's one thing to do a few programs well versus get too many programs that can't do any of them. It's just, and I'm sure you're probably hearing this from other counties, that it's hard to stomach this kind of an increase and then want to add FTEs. It's kind of a double blow. And that's why I asked, as far as if we could employ that half-time person, is because then we wouldn't be subject to a state just coming in and going up to them. And maybe they were behind, I don't know, but it's just a lot to take in 1 year.
It is a lot to take 1 year. I respect that, Commissioner. And, a couple of things that I think in hindsight, if we could do things differently, we would not have frozen rates as we came out of the pandemic. We did not pass an increase on to counties. Because we recognized that there were some challenges as we came out of the pandemic, so there was not a rate increase 1 year. And one of the commissioners that served on the AMC Extension Committee, he shared that with his board up in Sibley County when I was there last week, that really these rates, had Extension continued to charge the way that they had originally laid it out in their MOA at that time, we would still be looking at these same prices. We just maybe wouldn't have noticed it quite as much. But I certainly respect that you were dealing with a lot of requests and budget year than many county boards anticipated. And so we want to work with you and figure out what we can make happen. And just kind of have the conversation out of this.
I do know that Amy has come to the fair board meetings. She tries to make everyone, but since, like you say, the pandemic, we held those wages frozen. She has had, and I don't know if you have that information, I don't have it with me, a substantial increase in 4-H members since then that were not even there prior to. It's a lot of city kids and still rural that she's seeing a lot more of these kids come into that program.
Yes, I would agree with that. So when I looked at enrollment data, we have seen the smallest increase has been a 22% increase in membership per year since coming out of COVID. And that's pretty rare. We've seen some counties that have had really good growth. None of them have reached Waseca County's level. So I think that we've got something to be proud of here.
Can you explain why? I know Amy was good during COVID on the Zoom things and staying connected with the kids through some Zoom programs. Do you think that helped coming back out or?
Absolutely. I think that Amy is very creative. She's very good at her job. She's also been here consistently. So I think that consistency has helped us in Waseca County. But I think that she has done a really good job of, once she gets a kid to one program, she's able to make that child feel important, special, and gets them to another one, and then another one. And then they bring along a friend. Also, just the way she engages in the community, things like the POP program, she has found ways to make that appealing to a broad range of folks. And it's just successful for her. She's talented is what it comes down to.
Since they've allowed chickens in the city limits, you have the parents did it for the eggs, obviously, but the kids kind of melded into that and said, oh, you can do this. What can we do with that? And then it went on to rabbits.
Chair.
Yeah, yes.
That's okay. I think I know the answer to this, but maybe our representative on the board can representatives on the extension committee. I think much of that increase is driven by the participation in the POP program and the relationship she has with some SAC programs where she's doing educating. I know that at one point, Michael and I had a discussion as Power Produce was standing up, and it's like, SHIP is supposed to get these and has some resources to get those things started, but then we're supposed to figure out, the community is supposed to figure out how to make that happen after that. And it has been wildly successful. And I know that has taken a big piece of Amy's plate to organize and figure that out. When we look at obviously Ag County, we want our 4-Hers to like be the centerpiece of what we do in extension here. But it seems to me that SAC programming and the POP programming are extra things that will help feed our 4-H program, without a doubt. But those are the places where the biggest amount of growth has come in both programming time and energy for our educator. At one point, I was in Michael's office saying, somebody's got to make this all like coordinate. Well, Amy along with our Ashley over in public health have done a lot of work along with that committee to really grow that program. That's got to land someplace. Somebody has to oversee it. We have skin in the game there, liability and benefit to the community, both. And so in my mind, that's where the growth is coming from. Amy does a great job because she is so connected. She knows people and people know her, and she does have some real gifts here. I don't want to burn her out, and I know we've been pushing her really hard. So I think it would be, if we want all that programming to continue, then we have to do something, and otherwise we have to say, take these things off the plate. I mean, we just have to. It's not fair. It's not fair to her to expect more than a full-time employee can get.
I have to agree, Waseca County is an Ag county. That's our major industry in our county. And keeping the youth involved and giving them programs and showing where they can go within the Ag programs. Having Amy get additional programming for teens to focus on career exploration in the trades, to bring them back to Waseca County. And I think it's a tough number for us to take in, but I think in the long run, over the years, it'll be worth that little extra money that we put in there to keep our youth involved and keep them going and coming back to Waseca County. I think that's important as a whole. Just keeping everybody engaged in those programs where they do a wonderful job. Even our committee at Extension, that we talk about that, and that's that.
Is there a connection between that career development for our 4-H youth and our MBAC internship program? Have we placed, and I'm pretty sure I can say, we haven't placed any interns at Ag Partners, at Extension, at Crystal Valley. And I know some of that is the liability that comes along with whatever job they're doing there. But
I think MBAC just started kind of that program for the trades to get the youth involved and take them to different areas.
yes,
And I think that's something that needs to expand so they know that they're.
but we also have our own internship program through MBAC.
Correct.
I'm thinking how that could work together. Sorry to go off on a rabbit trail, but.
So Christy, in our region, how common is it to have a Sarah position? How relevant is that?
So the administrative support, so every county has an administrative support. That is something that within the MOA that we do kind of call out that, there's a minimum of 20 hours per week that we really need. 40 hours is ideal, and that's what we have here. And so every county does have a Sarah. We do have several counties within the region that actually border Waseca County where they have 2 youth development educators. And so it isn't uncommon to have a larger footprint within extension than what we currently have there.
Thanks.
Is the temporary casual staff, is that defined as what their duties would be?
So we work with whoever is hired to identify what their area of focus might be. And so some years that person is, perhaps they are going for their education degree. And so then that temp casual position might be really focused on doing summer classes and curriculum development. This year we had Laura Westrom as our intern or temp casual. She really had an interest in a lot of areas. And communications is kind of a focus of hers. And so she did a lot of work on communicating messaging about 4-H programming. She did day camps that, were just really fun and interactive, and maybe had a little different approach than somebody who was just strictly an education major because of some of her different backgrounds. And then we've also had people who were, studying livestock, going for some type of a livestock degree, and so then their intern work has been more related towards building out programming around that. So typically, though, they're always going to be doing a day camp or 2 or 4, depending upon what the year looks like. They're going to be now working with that POP program pretty heavily during the summer, and then at county fair. But we still try to fit in some things that kind of meet their developmental needs as well.
So there is oversight, $22.56 an hour, so fairly decent money.
And not all of that is their wage. So that does include, dollars going back into Amy's salary essentially to provide that supervision piece, as well as, they get mileage reimbursement. They also have access to, they're covered under insurance while they're on our staff, things like that.
So how does that work?
Liability insurance.
Liability
No,
insurance.
not so much that, but, so there's money going back into Amy's salary
Well, I shouldn't-
for oversight.
It's not like she gets a bump when that person is here, it's just how the dollars are shifted in the pots of money that fund salaries. So let me rephrase that. Within that 2256, we do have dollars factored in that cover the supervision costs that come with having an employee. So just like you pay your department has your supervisors, you have that salary that you carry as well, right, for all of the employees that they supervise. We factor those pieces into our salary algorithm as well.
Other questions, comments?
If you do have any questions that come up, please do not hesitate to reach out. I'm happy to talk with anybody or come back and chat with you all again.
Thank you.
Christie. Probably jump right into that. Yes.
They need big for there to be hollered at. Brad,
Yes, sir.
or the other.
Come on in, Mark.
Go get him. Go get him.
Here he is.
Good, Mark.
Morning.
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 Morning, Sherry.
Morning.
So Mark, we can turn it right over to you. I do have the materials you had sent before if you want me to pull anything out in particular. If you wanted to look at the budget specifically. Just pull it up. I mean, I have these documents if that's helpful to talk to from a narrative standpoint.
That's why we're here today, right?
Absolutely.
What would you You want a quick overview or?
Yeah, why don't you start with a quick overview? That'd be
Okay.
great, thanks.
Sure, so we did submit our 2025 budget, which you do have in front of you. I will note that this is the first year where we've had this increased level of detail in terms of trying to do better accounting of all of our income and expenses. And that is no small part to some of the input from WD, who sit in on our SWC board meetings. So I make that as a note that we do have increased detail, and also for that reason, it's more difficult to compare back to 2024, since it has a different budget format. We do always try to have a balanced budget where income matches our expenses for the year. As you can see, we've got approximately 1.2 million budgeted for 2025. And there are some assumptions with that in terms of some of our grants. If it's a 2-year grant, try to budget in about half. On average, you're going to spend it in year 1 or year 2. How that will actually play out in reality, yet to be seen. But at least that way, each dollar will show up in a budget at some point and be accounted for. Another big change that SWC saw this year and will continue next year is the addition of a 4 staff with the additional staff expenses associated with that. We did divide up all of our grants, line items of our grants.
Mark?
Yes.
Ask one question on just, I think I know the answer, but these guys maybe don't, that fourth technician you hired, that had some grant dollars, right?
Yes.
That's what-
Yeah, we applied and were successful in getting a grant to hire, so we estimated 75% of that time. So that particular grant is very work task specific. It needs to be for soil health, and we know that all of our time is not going to be for soil health. So you'll see that particular grant is going to be the third from the bottom from our state allocated grants. The state follows our soil health staffing. That's where you'll see that line item. And then the corresponding expenses, that position is termed a resource technician. So that is a brand new position as of this July. So I think the other probably thing important to notice is on the expenses. We do have a large budget, but to note that approximately 820,000 of that expense is a dollar that's going out the door to somebody else. So landowner, another entity that is not being retained by the SWCD. It's a pass-through. We also did take a look at our equity. So our basically our reserve funds are throughout the past year, and that has varied. That has varied from 615,000 to 725,000. So again, that a lot of our grants are prepaid grants. So we get the grant into our bank account ahead of time, but we haven't done the work yet. So it's not really, we don't consider it ours until we fulfill the service. And if we want to fulfill that work or complete the work, that dollar would have to go back. So that's basically our bank account, checking account, track the grants that we haven't completed the work for. And that's how we get to our equity or reserve balance. And that's approximately 18 months of operating funds. So I think that's just a real quick overview, and whatever additional details would be desired or questions, I can certainly try to answer them to the best of my ability.
Questions, Mark?
Yeah, sure. And let's, probably hard for us to understand, and I know a little more because I'm on the board and I listen to your guys' meetings and stuff, but you show off balanced budget, but over the past 6 years or so, you've been able to be either under budget or you collect more revenues because we've been able to increase that reserve.
Yep.
You know, since about 18, 19, it's kind of been steadily increasing. So is it just because of fluctuations in your budget? Because this is the best guess, you know, on what's going to happen. Where those revenues end up, you end up being positive budget over the past few years? Is it, where is the extra money coming from? That's what I'm trying to.
Sure. So, so when I first started in 2018 here, I knew that the SWC had a financial shaky past.
Yeah.
So the budgeting was very much on the conservative side. So estimate low on the income, estimate high on the expenses, just to try to build up some of that equity, some of that security. And then the other thing, I think as our new budgeting format is trying to correct, we weren't identifying all of our income on our budget. And I think that this new format addresses that. And then, you know, we were a staff of 3. We had some turnover with our staff. When you lose a staff for a couple of months on a small staff, that makes a difference on your budget. If you're saving 10, 20,000 a year, that's a horrible way to build up your reserve, but it happens. And yeah, there's also a couple, I won't say oddball, but occasionally there's unusual things, or I shouldn't say unusual either, but things in our grants and how we use the grants that may bump up our dollar amount too. And then I'd say this past year, a very good thing for us is that we did receive a higher interest from our bank, going from a couple of tenths to 3% or more, which is adding 20,000 to our budget, which makes sense. So part it's of interest that I probably didn't mention is that we are asking for a 60,000 county contribution. So that is very much lower than the past. So we were right at 100, 105 until last year, and then it was 50,000.
What overall, how does your investments, what's the total of your investments? What do you have in reserve? I guess that's my question overall.
So our current, as of most recently, so as of June 30th, it was 715,000.
Your expected budget for next year is what? Is that up there, Michael?
It's 1
million.
Yeah, 1.2 and some change.
So Mark, with the reduced ask in county appropriations, what's going to make up the difference? Are you having to then utilize some of those reserve dollars to meet the budgetary demands compared to previous years, or how is that been working fiscally?
Yeah, so we are using some reserves for a vehicle expense. We haven't been budgeting anything for vehicle or equipment, so we plan to use reserves for that. And the balance of that is again going from that very conservative, low on income, high on expense to more of a realistic or more of an optimistic, either even on those or low on income, high on expense, sort of thing. So we're accounting for that additional income from some of those grant sources, and we did take on some additional grant responsibilities with the sewer and water plan, with that has some income associated with it. And then also that staffing grant that's covering, we hope, 75% of our new staff.
Any other questions for Mike?
Back on the 25th of July, I forwarded you guys some information from Bowser on suggestions on reserve balances, because we had discussions at your board meeting, where should that reserve balance be as far as percentage to budget or months to budget, And I don't know if it was taken the wrong way or what, but it was simply what Bowser had stated in some, what their suggestions were. And I sent it just as information for you guys to take and do what you want with it. I wouldn't have probably suggested as low as what Bowser was saying at that time, either 3 to 6 months. And I think I put in my email in the forwarding that I would suggest more like a 9 to 12 month, and that's just me. And I don't know if it was taken the wrong way or not, but I'm sure you probably read it from your chair, the letter that was sent out to us.
I saw it commented on a draft that I wasn't able to read
The letter. Okay. Because I don't think us and you guys are very far off in our thinking. I think we both are wanting to support SWCD, but we want to try to manage that reserve to make it not look outrageous to the public, but we don't want to get you guys into a situation where you feel pinched. You want to continue to do your services the way you want to do them. And I don't feel like we're that far off in our thinking. I'm not exactly sure what spurred this email, because I thought I was fairly open to where we were at and feel like we're in a pretty good place and working well together. And maybe that's all his intent was. But I think it probably would be a good idea for maybe us to sit down and finalize it, in a meeting somewhere in the near future, if you feel that way also.
Yeah, I think that's one of our questions is I know we've talked about our reserve and operating months. I think hearing from you, commissioners, what you think an appropriate number of operating months is.
Right. And knowing that you guys have taken on more work and you possibly need a little more, having to do with one watershed, one plan, and that type of thing. That's all stuff, we need to make sure we're on the same page. Because we want to continue a good relationship.
Mark, does Waseca Soil and Water, do they have like funding to help with the weed harvester? Or as that would be following kind of a one water, one shed, one plan there? Would there be funding available to help offset some of the costs on that?
So that, I'm not sure if that would, well, that's in the canon, so I'd have to look and see if they have anything that would suit that. And that might be the next work plan. So if that is a need, we kind of want to know that ahead of time so we can kind of get that into the work plan. Doug, you're still gonna be on that. And
I think so, yeah.
I'm just curious, because it all goes down, like you said, it goes down the Crane Creek up to the plant, so I would think it would fall someplace, you'd be some funded someplace through the state.
I think originally, I brought it up at it, when we first started this 3 years ago, that we were gonna be doing this, weed program. And, it was, a lot of the programs have to do with erosion and, control of the water flow. And I think at that time, I was a little bit, felt like I maybe wasn't gonna get anywhere, getting funding through Canon, but we could still do that. And now that the pilot program is over, and we'd like to continue to maintain it, maybe there could be some money there. I don't know what your thoughts are.
Yeah, it'd be good to get Waseca for sure. But yeah, it may take the next work plan, so work plans are every 2 years.
Okay.
Just a thought.
I have appreciated the more detailed budget plan, Mark, very much. And it certainly helps us all understand what you're doing. That being said, SWCD has its own elected board, and we don't want to be in the middle of your board. Your board runs your organization. We do, as Commissioner Chris Johnson said, support our SWCD. You're doing important work for our county. And so I would echo that, yes, we need to get together with administrator and chair and of your board and representatives from our board and have a little more discussion. I think that might be helpful, especially in light of the letter here. I don't know that, I agree, we're not far apart. You're doing important work, and you're doing more work than ever with One Watershed, One Plan, and we want to be in charge of Waseca River because it's over 85% of our acres. So I've really, really appreciated the work that's being done to make that happen, both on the part of your staff and the part of your board. Very, very much. Thank you.
Any other questions or comments from Mark?
I have one more question, and this could be a discussion when we get together. Is, if we said we commit to the 60,000 for appropriation, we would kind of like to have some kind of knowing how your years, let's say we give you the first half like we did this year. Do we have a discussion toward the end of the year before that second appropriation comes? And if you're having a good year, and your reserve is staying where you'd like it and stuff, can there be some agreement that we forego that second appropriation if not needed? I think that's something you guys could think about too as we get together and talk about that. That maybe it's a look back type thing. And we talked about that a couple of years ago about maybe we should be appropriating at the end of the year where there's a need, when there is the need.
I just want to build on what you were saying there. I do think it's important that, because we need in every department, in our own budget, in your budget, there has to be reserve funds. They're not only recommended, but in some places mandated. We need to make sure we've got enough on hand. But I think all of the boards that are responsible for taxpayer funds, for the use of taxpayer funds, no matter whether they come to us directly or not, need to be thoughtful about the amount of reserve, because it isn't good stewardship. And we certainly want to have enough, but we don't want to budget so conservatively and have such a big reserve that we're we're supposed to be using those taxpayer dollars for the good of the folks. And so it's a hard balance to find. You've got some guidance from SWCD, and I want to respect that that's the decision of your board, but I do think that's Commissioner Christopherson's suggestion might help your board, the SWCD board, manage that reserve in a way that is not totally work-driven. Because right now, some of what you get in depends on the work you do. And that is dependent on the partners that you get to work with you within the county. And I think the ability for your board to have that other mechanism that makes sure you're solvent, but at the same time can help them manage that reserve so it doesn't get bigger than it should. I'm hoping that they would be open to that idea as well.
Yeah, I certainly am not here to speak for the board, but I think the thought within the board is no longer towards growth of reserve, is either maintain or probably more towards decrease.
Sure. Well, we want to work with you to make that happen, whatever your board decides.
Thanks, Mark.
Any other questions or comments? No. Good. Thank you.
All right, thank you for your time. Have a good formal meeting.
All right, thanks, Mark.
Thanks, Gary. Anything else? No, sir. Very good. We'll close the work session at 9. All right, it is 9:31. We'll start the regular board meeting with the silencing of cell phones and standing for the pledge of allegiance. Pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Good morning and welcome, everyone. Is anyone here for public comment? Anyone for public comment? Anyone for public comment? Hearing none, we will move on to introduction of new staff. Sarah.
Good morning. I am pleased to have a couple of staff here today. The first is Melissa Palmer Hernandez. She is joining us for the semester. It's her practicum for her social work degree. So we're very excited to have her join us for even just a short period of time. And today is Emma Peterson's first day. She is a permanent social worker on our staff starting today. Thank you.
That's great. Welcome. Thank you. Anyone else for introduction of the new staff? All right, moving on to approval of the agenda. Commissioner Krause?
No changes from me, Mr. Chair.
Commissioner Milbrecht?
No changes from me, Mr. Chair.
Commissioner Christopherson?
No changes.
Commissioner Moulton?
I think we need to pull a couple of the permit extensions from the consent agenda, the Crinky and the Blue Jay Solar. There's a typo in the bills that we should probably correct before we extend them.
Okay, thank you. Michael?
Mr. Chair, if the board's willing, I'd like to consider addition of a quick action item to correct something on our subcommittee assignment list for the Board of Commissioners. It is just a simple exchanging of names that are referenced in Joint Ditch 1 with Joint Ditch 5 to correct where we are the minority shareholder versus majority shareholder. Right now we're showing us with our 3-member subcommittee assignment on the minority ditch system opposed to the majority. So I'll pull that up at that point in time, but very simple correction if we're willing to address that.
All right, thank you. Beth, anything?
No.
All right, with that being said, on those amended, I'll look for a motion.
Motion.
And is there a second?
Second.
Motion by Commissioner Milbrecht, second by Commissioner Christopherson. Any discussion? All those in favor, aye?
Aye.
Those opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Next are presentations. We have an update on Green Seam by Sam Ziegler. Good morning.
Good morning, Commissioners. Thanks for having me here. It's good to see you all. Yeah, I just wanted to give you an update where Green Seam's at and go from there. So we have a few materials that are in the packet that feel free to look through for additional information, but I was just going to go through the presentation and have some Q&A time. So if you want to go right to the presentation part, that's the worksheets. There's an impact statement right there. So just a little background, Sam Ziegler started Green Seam with Greater Mankato Growth 9 years ago as a look back and saying, why is our region doing so well when a lot of the country is in the Great Recession timeframe? And it was truly because of food and ag industry in our region that we continued to perform well and our numbers were stronger than the rest of the US. And so then it kind of came to, well, is anybody focusing on food and ag? And there was a clear sign that not many were focusing on the food and ag industry. We're looking at other manufacturing sectors, clean tech, those kind of things. And it became apparent that there was a need from industry standpoint and community to say, let's focus in on food and ag. And so for that, it's started Green Seam in 2016 and been at the helm ever since, continuing to grow it. Next slide. So, what is Green Seam? Why is Green Seam? We're industry cluster economic development. So when you think of food and ag as this ecosystem, we're focusing in on that. So it could be somebody all the way from the production standpoint, all the way through professional services that service the food and ag industry sector. If you look at, a business that you have here at Bird's Eye, and you think of all the folks that are maintaining and running that facility, they might not be listed as food and ag type of company, but they surely continually need electrical wiring and support, and they need all these other things that go along with it. So that's the ecosystem that we look at. We look at it as, it is our economic resilience. That's why our region has done well, continues to do well, and will grow as the world needs more food and ag and bioeconomy that even leads into the medical sector, which I'll talk about in a little bit later. And then it is our competitiveness. If you look as a region, we look all very similar. We have crops and we have livestock, and we're in this vast region with lower population masses. But if you really look at the global scale standpoint, most of the world lives on a mountain, or on a desert, or in coastal areas which don't produce food. And so if you take a step back and you really look at the world, and that's a little bit where I came from. I came from international marketing, doing work promoting soybean farmers and pork and beef farmers across the world. And 25% of the world lives in Southeast Asia, in the islands and mountains, right? And they need our food. So does our friends in Canada, which is our largest trading partner to the north. That's how we look at competitiveness, that we have something unique and something special here, and why not talk about it? So here's our mission is really to elevate this region as this powerhouse, as this world-class food and ag business epicenter. It has grown to be that way, but not many people know about it. So there's a few things we have to do to elevate that people know. And it's really to shape this food, to shape this region, shape the industry, shape the businesses, and shape communities to say, this is what we're good at, this is where we stand. And when I show you this map, I do this in a purpose of, most people have heard of a Technology Solution Center or Department of Defense Solution Center of Silicon Valley, but most people can't even name 3 towns in the Silicon Valley. Silicon Valley is about the same population as the state of Minnesota. So to get our name on the map here in Waseca, we need to have a brand, we need to have awareness to lift our region up, because are we really going to get people to remember where Defender is, where Janesville is, where Waseca is, where, even our larger town of Mankato, without this brand of this solution center. And but we have the power and the strength of an industry expertise and knowledge to really hold a brand that's at the same levels of Wall Street or Silicon Valley. It's just in a different sector. I put up a geographic map up there. We kind of talk about the southern Minnesota, northern Iowa region. We don't have hard boundaries that will work with people that fill a need. I want to see businesses grow and strengthen within the closer the region, the better. But if they're outside of that, I'd rather have them there than be located in southern US or east or west coast. I'd rather have them here where our businesses have a chance to interact and to potentially have work and grow their businesses because of new growth. The investment value that we have from businesses, from the state of Minnesota, from some nonprofits, City of Waseca, what does that get you? We try to make the right connections of those, what you're looking for. We try to help find resources when there's a need of resources. The talent pipeline has been something that it's been an agriculture concern, but it's also been a rural America concern. And we're trying to address how do we focus on the talent part, because we do have a lot of students that could find opportunities and youth that could find opportunities here if we help them make that connection. We want to grow your network so people know who you are and what you offer. And then we try to keep people stay informed and up to speed on a few different things I can talk about here in a minute. So our big events you might hear about are our big kind of platforms that get most of the spotlight. The Celebration of Ag just happened in the summertime, and that's really to pull together whoever's investing in green scene, state leadership, and enjoy some networking and learn about what we have accomplished from the previous year. This year we also highlighted innovation in the region, and so we had companies that highlighted what innovation products that they had been doing. The real forum is really help put a spotlight on southern Minnesota as we really think about often to go to a big conference with national speakers, you got to go to the Twin Cities. And we try to reverse that and make them come here and give people opportunity to talk about
what issues are facing rural America? What's facing Main Street? So we've had anywhere from the county Canadian consulate to the top researcher of Bayer. And so this year we have Vice President of AGCO Corporation, one of the larger tractor and equipment manufacturers in the world. Their Vice President of Supply Chain is coming along with Lambert Lakes as Chief Technology Officer as well. And then we'll finish the night out with opportunity for legislators. The State of Ag reports are really a signature event that's statewide to capture the full ecosystem and the breadth of food and ag and what the pulse is. So whether you're teaching ag, whether you're a farmer, whether you're in food processing and manufacturing, fill that out and you have a big report that we do in March. And then workshops, we continue to grow. And as you know, in one of those worksheets are those impact sheets. We had a business creation workshop here in Waseca here back a few months ago, and Michael was able to attend, and I can't remember who else was, somebody else maybe was there. But and this has all happened, one, of creating these partnerships and support from people like Tina Wilson to help organize that, let her businesses in the community know that they're happening, and bring them to the table where we can have speakers leading through a series of information of how they can grow their business. So I jumped ahead a little bit, I guess, but yeah, the series of workshops that we started it here in Waseca, and now we'll be adding 2 more towns that will happen this winter and spring in southern Minnesota here. The State of Ag report we talked about, but we've been having for 5 years now. We're starting to get attention of more than just businesses, but legislators, others are using that as a pulse of what's impacting business and is there something we can change. On the talent part, it's a big focus of ours. We've tracked over 3,000 students that have taken now classes or programs or degrees that were because of Green Seam's partnership with that institution to see those students have that opportunity. And I apologize for the spelling error in the next one. It's supposed to be driving regional investments. And we track large projects that are happening throughout southern Minnesota. And this misses a lot of the small and medium projects that your financial institutions and others will tell you are happening. But we're at $918 million of large projects in this, which one of them was a big impact was Bird's Eye Town Ag. And so that's important to know that often you'll see economic development from a city talk about the impact, and we talk about it as more of a regional area. So where are we going? So we've had one 5-year plan. We completed that in 2018 through 2023. Now we're into the next 5-year plan where we went through a whole series of investor stakeholder meetings and thoughts. And so really we have to continue to build this regional ecosystem. We have to think about it that way because what's good in St. James is going to help you guys. What's going to help in Owatonna will help you guys. We're a small community that has a large reach. And so how do we think as this region to grow our community? Pillar 2 talks about more about agriculture and bioeconomy. There's a lot of projects that happen here because of food and ag processing that then end up looking like medical, or they end up looking like plastics or manufacturing, but it's because of the breadth of food and ag. So how do we focus in on that? The workforce, we've talked about and addressed, but it's strictly a key moving forward with, it's really important. And then amplifying this brand. And what we mean by that is we have to think about it, get back to that very first map, is it's a hard time to get every town known globally or world or US wide or even Midwest. So how do we talk about this as a brand that we're a part of, it's a region, and it's not just Green Seam as an organization, it's our region, it defines our region. So investing in the Green Seam, first of all, we see investors as people that are engaged with us. We don't have the expertise of every sector of every town, and so we want engagement. And then the second thing is if somebody is interested in being involved financially, it is up to you. We don't put a small business against a big business and create levels that only the big business will be in, and so it's really set your own. We have investments from $1,000 up to $100,000 a year. So depending on where you're at and what that fits your budget. Here's a list of our investors. We're at 100% retention in the last 5 years since we really started this model. And then we continue to grow each year. Some foundations, some organizations, and those components. So that's who is investing in Green Team. And so I'd just love to open it up for questions. I want to try to keep it high level and brief, but any questions are welcome.
Questions, Michelle?
I was told you guys weren't shy.
Anything? Yes.
Tell me about Mankato State University's work in expanding their footprint in ag, because they're right in the middle of the defined region, and my kid went to NDSU.
So Minnesota State University Mankato has been on our focus or target for a long time, as they're the second largest university in our state. And there's a lot of students that are going there for sciences or business and ending up in food and ag. And how can we be more purposeful about seeing that they physically take that track and understand that there's careers and jobs out here in these thousands of businesses has been a focus. So there's a few degrees there you can get now. You get an agribusiness degree. There's an ag science minor. And the biggest news is we're trying to have this across colleges. So within a university, there's these business units, there's these colleges. And they're all very, very siloed. And so we're creating, they are, and I'm part of it, is creating a school of agriculture. And a school can go across colleges. So a student can get different credits. And it'd be a little bit more competitive, so you can get some science classes and programs, and you can still get an ag business degree with a emphasis in agronomy or something of that nature. And so that's one example. They have a soils and water center. They have a lot of nutrition and health is already some programs and classes. They have so much there, but they're just not organized. They're not working together. And so they typically sit on my board. I sit on many of their advisory boards, and we're thinking, how can this get beyond what it is today? Hopefully this fall there'll be an announcement from them of showing their commitment to this. They did have USDA Secretary Vilsack was there and gave a speech, was that last winter? And so they have put their foot in the ring to say, we can teach and educate students in the food and ag industry, but it might look different. They don't need to replicate what the University of Minnesota has or NDSU or Brookings, but they need to offer some things, because 40% of the ag students at Brookings at South Dakota State University are Minnesota students.
Yeah.
40%?
Yeah.
And Mankato offers a little bit smaller, school than a University of Minnesota, so it doesn't really compete. And a little bigger than SMSU. SMSU has some good ag programs and degrees, and it's not made to take away what they're getting, but there's some students that's just too small. So it's kind of a fit right.
Thank you for that
Good question.
overview. I appreciate it.
You work with Farm America at all?
Yeah, we see resources in the region, and we want to figure out how to get them to the next level. Farm America is a unique resource. It's the only interpretive center in the state for agriculture. And they're state funded primarily. We had gotten the Senate Ag Chair to host a informative session this summertime. And now we have a couple meetings coming up to try to figure out how we can see the increased funding. A lot of their funding is going towards maintenance of really old historical site. And they're missing a gap between about the 1960s and the 2020s of sharing the agriculture story, or even the future agriculture story. And so we do partner and work with Farm America as much as we can, because they educate a section of our population that it's not Green Team's job, that's theirs, but how do we help us support them to see that grow, because it is so unique.
Say, did you have a booth at the state fair?
We did not have a booth at State Fair. We haven't, it takes a lot of resources to do that.
Takes, human power.
A lot of people and some financial, because you have to have materials for people to take away, walk away with. And that's out of our budget, yeah.
Yeah, I didn't know if that was something on the horizon or not.
It could be. We'd like to get to that point of educating, and talking to folks about opportunities in food and ag, but it's a little ways off yet. We do more business to business, or community to business relations than we do being the front and center for the general public.
Other questions or comments for Secretary?
Love to see Waseca be on that investor list if you're so inclined, and feel free to follow up with me if you have any questions.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thanks. Next up is the update from GovCon. Bill?
Good morning, everyone. Thanks for giving me a few minutes on your agenda. I just wanted to give you an update on the two broadband grant projects that we've got going on in Waseca County. Starting off, I'll start with the Round 10 grant. This is the most recent one, and we're still waiting to hear back from the Office of Broadband Development. It's 163 homes. The total project was 1.6 million. The rumors are that we should hear something by the end of September, but the Office of Broadband Development, the way it works is they kind of pick their winners. They then forward it to the governor's office. And in the past, the governor's office has kind of announced it around some sort of political event. Now that the governor is running as vice president, I don't know if that's going to change the timeline and how this will work or not, but we're still waiting on that one. Round 9, which that's the one we were approved, it's 492 homes, 5.9 million. This project had 190 miles of mainline cable. The construction crews are going right now. We're thinking by the time the ground freezes and we have to stop working, we should have around 150 miles of it done. So we'll have 40 miles to finish up in the spring. A lot of this is weather dependent. We kind of got held up with the first half of summer where it rained, 3 days every week kind of a thing. We should have splicing crews coming in later this fall yet to start prepping the network so that once that main line's done, we can go right into the drop crews and splicing and try and get people, hopefully we're installing in homes early fall next year. Be done with that. We've got a electronics hut that we'll have to locate. We have found an individual that's got some land, a lease for us to do that. We'll be filing a variance for the setbacks on that. Right now, we got Bolton Mick doing the site plan for it. The gentleman who's on, he's on one of the township boards. He didn't think it was going to be a problem with the variance. So with that, I stand for question. Sorry it was quick. But
what are the chances of round 10?
So one of the things that I think really sets our application apart has been the community support out of Waseca County. We have fantastic letters of support from businesses, homeowners, trying to justify why it's needed here versus some the other applications that have been applied for. We purposefully went smaller on this one because the first one that we got was so big, trying to get something out of it. So, I mean, I feel really good about it, but you just don't know.
Not a question, but a little story. Probably a month ago, Beth forwarded a phone number to me. A citizen had called wondering about the Round 9 project, and I called this particular. She sounded like a little old lady. She sounded kind of like me. But I called her back, and she was very worried. They dug by my house in the road ditch, but they haven't brought it up to my house, and I want them to bring it up to my house. And so I could look up her name and her address on the information that you provided, and I could tell her very specifically that that first we got to put in the big stuff, and then we'll come back and bring it up to houses, so that she knew that. And she couldn't remember the company name, and I made sure she knew. And she was so thankful and so excited. She said, I don't even care if I have to wait for next year, just as long as it comes. I'm just waiting. And I was just afraid they forgot about me. I said, they have not forgotten about you.
Yeah, the property agreements are mostly done. There'll be some that trickle in as the construction goes over the next year, but
I know you have an agreement with her.
yeah.
She was very clear. She wanted this at her house and she had done whatever, but she thought it was coming faster. So now she's got a little more realistic idea and she's very, very thankful for the work being done.
Yeah, wonderful. Thank you.
Other questions for Bill?
I've been watching quite a bit of it, and out there in Milton Township. But, so you think they're gonna have 150? They'll have only about 40 miles left,
That's the hope.
but they'll have all those connections done going,
The drops won't start till next year.
the drops one.
Yeah.
But the actual going underneath the road to get to the other side, then leaving it at the end of the driveway, that's where it's.
So
So the drops will be from the end of the driveway to the house.
yes,
That part will be next year.
Yep.
Okay. And I've also had the question of, okay, they dug it in the road and I gotta go find my tile. And if they hit the line, they call 811, it gets marked, they still hit the line. Is there a process of fixing that line then?
they just need to notify us that it's been hit.
That-
And then somebody will come out, dig it up, and then they'll fix it.
So how many little wires are actually in that line? Because it's only about that big.
Yeah, so the biggest size on the main line, an individual cable uses a 492. On this project, because you put the hut's kind of in the center of the area, it's probably 288 going out in each direction.
So don't hit it. Don't hit it. That's why I said just don't hit it. But, it's put down about 2.5 feet.
Oh, the main line should be 3 to 4 feet.
Yeah. With the,
Yeah.
3.5, 4 feet.
Yeah, they're gonna hit timelines, it happens unfortunately, but if they call us, we'll go out and dig it up and fix it for them, so.
Okay.
Other questions?
So just to be clear, if somebody finds a broken tile and they call us, we should say, get a hold of BevCom because they're gonna fix it, rather than have them go out and start digging and breaking that fiber.
Yeah, however they wanna do it, I mean,
We just,
yeah,
obviously, if we got a broken tile, we need people to be able to fix tile, but we want them to be very careful, and if they need extra help, let's not break the cable too. Let's not have broken cable and broken tile.
yeah, and our company's policy is anything within 7 years, we'll go back, if they report it, we'll dig it up and check it on our time.
I know that you guys have a robust policy for dealing with that issue.
Yeah.
Any other questions or comments?
All right, well, thank you very much for your time.
Thank you, Bill.
Next is approval of the county board minutes, the budget work session on July 16th, meeting minutes from July 16th, budget work session August 6th, meeting minutes August 6th, work session August 20th, and meeting minutes August 20th. Everyone's had a chance to look at those. I would accept a motion as a slate.
I'm gonna make that motion as a slate.
We have a motion, is there a second?
Second.
Motion by Commissioner Krause, second by Commissioner Wilbur. Any discussion? All those in favor, aye?
Aye.
Those opposed, same sign. That motion carries. Consent agenda is approval of the bills, amendment to agricultural use zone restricted covenant, Moonflower Farm LLC, extension of zone permit for Jesse and Angela Tesdall, conditional use permit extension, and Hidden Spring Lake Farm LLC transfer of development rights. Those we did.
Yes, we pulled off the printing extension and reduced over extension. Just to make corrections for this.
So that was B and
No, it's E. Two of the projects.
two of the E. Okay. All right. No, D. D.
Oh, sorry, I'm looking at an agenda I printed a couple days ago. You're right, D.
We're pulling D out of the consent agenda. Two of the three. Two of the three.
The Hogan conditional use permit extension should stay in my mind in the consent agenda. There's no issues with that.
Okay, with those two removed, and that consent agenda amended, I would look for a motion to approve. Motion.
And I'll make the second.
Motion by Commissioner Milbrass, second by Commissioner Walter. Any other discussion? All those in favor, aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, same sign. That motion carries. Under action items, child safety seat distribution order. Sarah?
Hello again. I am here this morning to talk about car seats. Specifically, there's a car seat distribution program handled by the state of Minnesota Traffic Safety Office of Traffic Safety. And our most recent allocation award is 2 car seats. Just as an update, I know we talked about car seats a while back and our number last year was in the 40s. I looked this morning and as of this morning, there are 71 distributions that have happened for various programs. So Blue Plus car seats, South Country Health Alliance car seats, and also child safety seats from this other resource. So all of those car seats are going to families in need. And they're installed by one of the 3 techs that we have who are our nursing staff for our family health unit. It's a tremendous program to get children restrained properly and traveling safely in our county and wherever they might go. Any questions about the information?
Questions for Sarah from the board?
I guess just one quick one. Do you ever gather any information from South Central EMS, because they have a child safety seat program as well? And how many of those seats may be coming to folks who need it in Waseca County? Just to give us better numbers.
Yeah, I don't know how many are distributed to folks in our county. I do know that we partner with Sheila to sometimes do car seat exchanges. So she might have one when we need one, when our allocation from this more broad program is out, because we only have so much storage in our building. So we actually kind of a problem with our car seat storage right now. So we're glad to have extra people getting seats, but when we get shipments, it's a bit tight for a bit. So sometimes she's able to solve.
Okay, so I'm glad you have that connection, and I figured you did. Thank you.
Other questions or comments for Sarah?
I'm moving.
We have a motion on the floor by Commissioner Milbrass and a second by Commissioner Christopherson. Is there any other discussion?
I mean, Commissioner Walter, not Milburn.
Sorry.
That's okay. Just to make it easy for staff here.
Sorry.
We want her to get it right.
There we go. Hearing, is there any other discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor, aye? Aye. Those opposed, same sign, motion carries.
Thank you.
Thank you, Sarah. Next is Goose Lake Park enhancement. Ryan?
Morning. So I'm here to talk about a Goose Lake enhancement project with Great River Greening. I brought Jennifer Gomez. She is the Southern Minnesota project manager,
And this kind of took place back when Eric was here, and Eric left, so I will here take over the project, to keep it moving forward. And this will probably be the longest presentation that I've done here for it. But anyway, so just a summary. I'm gonna kind of go through a little history back a little ways anyway. So before settlement, about 2/3 of the county was dominated by all tall grass prairie. The other 1/3 was the Oak Grove and Oak Savannah, which occupied a band from the north central to the southeastern part of the county. Bottomland forests and oak groves were associated with the principal rivers, namely the Wasura River in Waseca County. The northeastern region of the county was part of the big woods of the present. Frequent prairie fires help maintain the species composition of the area. Waseca forests have undergone dramatic changes in the composition of the area. Waseca forests have undergone dramatic changes in the decades since the settlement. Only about 10% of the pre-settlement forest areas exist today. Several surveys by the U.S. Department of Agriculture, Forest Services, and the DNR show a general decline in forest area over time, with some small gains in the last 20 years, which I have the percentages up there. So estimates of current forest land are compiled from U.S. Forest Service inventory and show about 3.7% of the land of Waseca County is forested. The composition of the forest include maple, basswood, elm, ash, soft maple, and aspen in declining order of importance. USGS topographic maps and aerial photographs show the Wasura River Valley contains the greatest concentration of the forest in the county. 95% of the forests in the county are owned privately, with the remaining 5% owned by the public section. In 2015, Waseca County started forestry plan with the DNR in Goose Lake Park, starting with the black walnut harvest of trees. After the harvest was complete, it was decided to wait and see what came back to life after opening these areas up. Now, in coordination with Gray River Greening and Grant, Waseca County has a chance to start more improvements to this park and open it up to even more of the public to enjoy. DRG will contribute a $29,500 match to Waseca County's contribution over the course of a 5-year project. After the Waseca County contribution, GRG shall assume physical responsibility for all services completed under the GRG's financial obligation as set out above. Shall be in accordance with the Cannon River Watershed Habitat Protection and Restoration Program, and may be met through actual payment for services to a third party or calculation of the value on an hourly basis for an in-kind services provided. Waseca County desires to contribute $3,000 over the course of the grant as an in-kind staff assistant, and will be fully taking over the management of the site following the end of the grant, which GRG will still help out with any questions and stuff like that. And if it is approved, and once approved by the Waseca County Board of Commissioners, a co-op agreement will be drawn up and be signed off on. Go to the Goose Lake Park site assessment. What would that be? Have that one on there. Okay, not sure. So basically, Goose Lake Park site assessment, phase 11, wetland enhancement of 11 acres. That will consist of lots of large buckthorn surrounding the perimeter. Wetland is mostly RCG, and that would consist of $29,500 in contracts and $14,000 in supplies. Phase 13 The woody enhancement, 48 acres, consists of opening up shrub layer on the southeast portion of Cottonwood Stand for a lake view. Select some larger oaks to thin around, will decrease competition and allow better acorn production and regeneration. Buckthorn clearing where there is a heavy buckthorn near most of the ponds. Some thinning might help carry the sedge vegetation from the trail where it is a thin canopy into the woodlands. Biochar, I'm not sure what that is, but okay. Seeding with a ground cover mix to help with buckthorn suppression, volunteer event, people, garlic mustard, pull on the trailways. Naturalist walkabout, have an event for the public to walk with a naturalist to talk about plant diversity and wildlife, birds, recommended late spring are all for all the ephemerals. This would consist of $224,000 in contracts, $4,500 in supplies. And then management after plans and some kind of buckthorn suppression / stressor will need to be implemented. You can either do those browse the foliage or cutting. Browse critical cutting will continue to stress and cost it before it can seed. I kind of had a Goose Lake Park map of basically the project that we're gonna plan on doing. I did throw in the PDF, kind of the whole program process of what we're trying to prove and accomplish here. And where are you gonna make?
So just to explain that biochar a little bit, biochar is what we're trying to do now. Instead of just doing open pile burning of all that buckthorn we will be removing, what we do is we bring in large kilns and it keeps that oxygen in that kiln. So it's less carbon released into the atmosphere. It's also less heat on the ground, which means we're not killing the soil microbes that are living in there. So a lot of times when you see somebody who's an open burning, where that burning was a lot of invasives take over because we've flora. So this helps prevent that. And then you can take that char and actually put it right back on the area that you removed it from. It keeps all of that organic matter there instead of just we burned it and took the chips away or you do chipping. So it's a new process. We're doing a lot of work with the university to find out how good biochar is, like how we would add this into ag fields, all sorts of different things. But we were looking to do part of that here at Goose Lake instead of, like I said, just those open burn piles.
I'm assuming that this gets hot enough to kill the seeds.
Yeah. Yeah, it's intensely hot. Like you need machinery to feed it fast enough because it burns so fast in these kilns. And we actually just ordered a few more. So even if we have a contractor doing the work on the site, which is most probable, we only have a small staff, that contractor will be trained in how to use the biochar and use it too. So, and again, we might not be able to do the whole project, but we want to do some of the project with the biochar.
When you say fast, how fast?
Oh, I would have to look up the actual numbers, but like a lot of times we're using like grapples and stuff to feed it in there. It's just going so fast. Like as a person, you wouldn't be able to feed it fast enough. Where if you've done open pile burning, one person can feed it fast enough. You need a lot of people to do it, which is why we need equipment for it. Yeah.
Other questions? Michael, can you pull up the county map? GIS one. Just have a question on where you have the buckthorn clearing and the big woods area in Cottonwood. I don't know if that is county property or not.
It doesn't go all the way up to the lake. It's like, it should be from, of course, I'm looking off of like a GIS map.
Yeah, that's what I'm looking at here, because I think some of that is.
It's right off the parking lot.
On the southern half, and just click on the road going into Goose Lake Park. Push up a little bit more. Sorry, go the other way, down. Click on that, click right there. to see how that, it falls into Justin Manthy's property there.
Okay,
And that's why I'm wondering, by looking at this, it almost looks like you're on his property, according to this map.
yeah, and again, I went off of a GIS layer that somebody else had put in for the boundaries. So again, I'll have to double check those boundaries. But I would like to get all the way up to where his boundary line is once we have that established. But I mean, is the parking lot on his property then?
No, the parking lot is not.
Okay. Because, yeah, it's right on that northern side of where the parking lot is. So I think that area, where it's kind of like highlighted in pink, that might not be your property, which might be why it was so much more dense and shrub layer.
I think we're more on the north side of that.
Okay, and that's just the question that, because at one time I looked.
No, that's very useful. So we'll double check this. I'll make sure I have this loaded on my map when I'm out in the field and make sure that I stay on your property, obviously. But then definitely with that, like, the cottonwood thinning, I think is definitely still on the Goose Lake property. I'll have to double check the other side. Like, there's a little pink spot I put in here, said buckthorn shrub clearing.
Yeah.
There's a lot of honeysuckle and other shrub layers that need to be removed there, but that might not be on your actual property. So that would just be removed out. But I think by thinning out that cottonwood, you're gonna get a great view of the lake coming in right off that, that parking lot. I think that's gonna really make the public wanna go visit more often. That's our goal, is to make this more public accessible, get that information out there for the public to wanna visit more.
My other question is, did we designate this as a no hunting park in Rona?
Not as of yet.
No, this one.
And again, with my contractors, I would make sure that they're not out there during hunting season. Sometimes like the DNR will be like, oh, we're okay if they want to be out there during just muzzle and rifle season or something like that. So whatever you're comfortable with, we can make sure that we keep the contractors out during certain times, but obviously they're used to working in those areas.
I'm just thinking of public going in there, making the park more friendly user, and we have hunters out there, and there's confidence.
Yeah, usually, like, I came from South Dakota where they just had big signs on everything that said, just so you know, hunting, allowed out here, you know, things like that. But, I mean, definitely the summertime, you're not gonna have hunters out there, and that's when let's really get the public focus more out in those times, those areas.
I talked about when Waseca, the city of Waseca has the garden walk, maybe kind of incorporating that and with the bird migration stuff. Seeing bird watchers out there, the uses for them as well. We didn't realize, you know, that's what they were doing until actually confronted, looking at binoculars and.
I mean, there's a great trail there that is being used by the snowmobilers that I think we could turn into, you know, definitely an area where people could walk. There's a lot of, if you're a flower person, the spring ephemerals out there are amazing, and that would be a good time to do a walk out there. Open up people's eyes to the nice spring plants that are out there too.
So I did a tour with Jennifer and a couple of her partners, and I ate some berries I've never ate before. Because I was told they were
These berries.
I just realized how much stuff was out there until I actually walked around the summit and knew what they were talking about.
Hang out with a nature nerd, learn a lot.
So this is the Goose Lake Park enhancement plan. What I would, guess I could get my.
And again, we're just looking for in-kind hours, no monetary. We're using the outdoor heritage funds to fund this. So just the hours of me discussing with Ryan the plans and going over everything with them, any kind of board meetings, things like that.
Okay, I've been sitting here trying to rack my brain figuring out how you're paying for all this. The outdoor heritage fund,
Correct.
but is that the 29.5?
So there's two different phases of it. So the phase 11, we have $29,000 in for, we're just gonna be doing some big buckthorn around that wetland area. So we're calling that wetland management. And then phase 13, which just went live this year, is for $224,000. And that's gonna be more of that big woods clearing, doing some clearing around those oaks. If we give some more space to those bigger oaks that are out there, they're gonna release more acorns. We're gonna start seeing more regeneration of those oaks. We can find some little ones out there, but they're really shaded right now. So if we can open up that canopy, I think you're gonna see a bigger variety of those trees coming back that we're not seeing that don't like the shade as much, so.
And that phase 13 then is coming from this heritage fund.
Both of them are, both of the outdoor heritage, yeah, it's two different phases. We started one where we're going to do another project, but ended up not going with it, so we moved it over to Goose Lake Park to do the wetland enhancement for phase 13. But we still have 3 years to get that work done. And then the phase 13 just went live this July, and that will have 5 years to do this work on. So we'll be out there for a total of 5 years. And of course, afterwards, when it goes to the county, we have no problem helping with plans about how to keep the buckthorn down. Usually buckthorn only has a seed source of about 3 years. So that's why we want to get working on it right away, get that buckthorn cleared so we kind of exhaust the seed while we're doing the work out there. We will be putting that supplies budget is to put seed down that will compete with that buckthorn after we've removed it. So there'll be some like sedge vegetation plants that can compete with that buckthorn too. So easier management in the future for you.
So that might be a learning experience for us too, for our other parks, as far as this competitive grass that you can put down.
Yeah, and this is something newer that it just started happening in the last few years. We just started noticing if we put a seed source down, it's gonna be more like a shade-driven seed source, obviously, but being under canopy.
Right.
It helps compete with that buckthorn instead of just waiting for it to come back. Because a lot of times you remove it, and it comes back in much worse. And what we're learning is that when you start clearing it and more sunlight hits the ground, those seeds that were just in wait because it was too shady now have a chance to spring up and they're not competing with the bigger buckthorn. So you kind of have to keep stressing that system out for multiple years, and then by putting that seed down, that's another stressor for it, so. We're learning as we go too, but we're more than willing to share that information.
Yeah, okay, good.
Other questions or comments?
Do you ever, one more, sorry. The oak clearing, and then you get more seedlings being able to sprout. Do you then thin out some of those so you don't get just a mass amount of oaks, that are that tall and they'll end up killing each other off? Do you thin them out in a way?
They kind of take care of themselves, with the competition, like the stronger ones are gonna survive, and that's why normally when you have those huge acorn harvests, when you have the big mass, not all of those are gonna come up. But the problem is right now, there's so much other competition with the other trees around there. There's a lot of basswood, ironwood, all of those, that they're getting outcompeted by everything else, not even just the oaks. So we want to at least give some of those oaks a chance.
Brian, do you have anything
Just my recommendation.
And that
My recommendation would be that the Waseca County Board of Commissioners agree to work with Gray River Greening on the Goose Lake Park enhancement. And also the staffing kind hours of $3,000 for the grant purpose.
I'll make that motion.
I'll second.
So we have a motion by Commissioner Mildrath and a second by Commissioner Christopher. Any other discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor, aye?
Aye.
Those opposed, same sign. That motion carries. Thank you.
Thank you.
Next is the cancellation of a conditional use permit. Thomas, good morning.
So this will just be a follow-up conversation from conversation in June about not requiring a conditional use permit amendment whenever a parcel is encumbered by CUP and it is listed. So, and we did go through this split in 2022, and they did have a conditional use permit that was approved in 2008 for a cell tower on that parcel. But for some reason, that CUP was never recorded until we found out about that in 2022. So that got recorded November 10th of 2022. And then after this, the CUP was recorded, they split the building site with a bigger parcel. So now, since the whole parcel was encumbered by the CUP, if you take the building site out, we don't want the conditions to be applied to that building site. So we have to go through either a CUP amendment process or a cancellation of CUP. So just to reduce the hardship on the property owner, if we went through that CUP public hearing process, that'll be a little over $500. This is just $46, just to record the document if it's approved. So, I just presented this, I don't have any more now, I think I have one more for you, but you're an extension in Canagua for this, and for this process, but then I thought I would start with this process and see how it goes before we kind of go through the other parcels that we have for amendments. So the recommendation would be for the county board to consider approving the CEP cancellation for the building site. The parcel ID 06, it's in section 4 of Janesville Township.
Okay.
Just to be super clear here, correct me if I'm making mistakes. The CUP was on this whole parcel. They have since subdivided this parcel, taking the building site out. I know the family and mom passed away a number of years ago, a few years ago, and this is all part of working through the estate. And so the CUP removal is only from that building site, and that conditional use permit stays on the rest of that parcel.
Yes.
And so this is a fast and easy way to say, this is no longer subject to that CUP, but the rest of it stays as it should.
Yes.
Easy peasy. Thank you.
Good explanation.
Makes sense.
I would move it.
Okay.
I'm confident that this is the easy way to do this and the right way to do this.
The motion, is there a second?
There is a second.
Motion by Commissioner Walter, second by Commissioner Krause. Any other discussion? All those in favor, aye?
Aye.
Those opposed, same sign. That motion carries. Thank you.
Yeah. Do we want to take on those other two things now?
Yeah, certainly can. We can, are you gonna put a letter out? 1 and 2? E, F. Yeah, F, sorry, I have it written down. 1 and 2, F. As long as mine is here. We'll move F up. Okay, go ahead.
And Moni, I know we've exchanged emails on this. I noticed as I was reading those extensions of conditional use permits, that 2 of them had typos in them, the Crinky project and the Blue Jay Solar project. Out of the 3 solar projects, 2 of them had typos where the bond amount was in numbers 45,000. But in the cut and paste, 35,000 was still there in words. And I know that you made the corrections in the documents, but I thought it was important that we pull those off the consent agenda so that those corrections become part of public record.
That was for the decomposition.
No, this is for the extension of conditional use permits. There were 3 solar projects that we're doing extensions
What
on.
was the 45,000?
Bond, the decommissioning bond.
Decommissioning.
Yes, and we want to make sure that that decommissioning bond amount is enough to actually cover costs.
Right, so we want it to be the 45,000.
Yes. Yes. And other places in that paperwork, it shows up as 45,000, but there was one place in each of those documents where 35,000 was still in there, written out in words, and we want to make sure we update that so that there's perfect clarity if we have to use it.
Okay. So this is going to be action item F, 1 and 2, and we can take those on as a point. If someone would like to make that motion.
I brought it, I'll make it.
We have a motion, is there a second? Second. Motion by Commissioner Walter, second by Commissioner Milburn. Any other discussion? All those in favor, aye?
Aye.
And those opposed, same sign. That motion carries. Change this, and I'll sign it again. Thank you. is Resolution 2024-27, letter of commitment for local match of federal EDA infrastructure grant.
Thanks, Mr. Chair. Sorry, my computer's being a little slow right now. I'm getting there. So this is an item that I brought to the commissioners a couple of months ago, and in consideration of what would be the local match for our Workforce Development Center project at the lower level of the community services building. At that point in time, we were talking about an assumed project cost of near about $2 million. We did some reworking on the exterior of that as well as to the parking lot and the infrastructure and consideration of some of the impervious surface considerations we have to do, but also just functionality of removing some of that roundabout area in the existing lot and being a little bit more functional with the inflow and outflow of traffic that would be in that space. We've looked at those in the past. But in those subsequent conversations, getting some revised budgetary numbers as well too. And that $2.8 million is what we are focusing on as a potential total project cost with all other contingencies factored in and associated. So the revised resolution I was bringing back to you is under the assumption that if we receive a 70% cost match, which is probably a fair contingency, I should say. We're allotted up to 80% for the 20% local match, so it could be less. We're assuming, planning for a 7% match to our 30% commitment, obviously. So assuming up to a $3 million project, then we can have us around that $900,000 local match, should that all come through. I had a $400,000 placeholder in Fund 11 for this year, if you recall, of budget conversations last year. And the other placeholders that I had annotated on there were residual CARES dollars and were ARPA dollars. So it would be the $300,000 cost share between all of those, or each of those three fund designations, as I mentioned. So the $300,000 in terms of the general fund, not general fund, but Fund 11 that has already been budgeted, that isn't over and above what is already there, it's existing today. And based upon the timing of the award of this grant, likely to exceed our fiscal year boundary, I would be looking to expense and or reserve that to when the cost realization actually occurs. The end of the federal fiscal year is the end of this month. So there is a little bit of sense of urgency from federal EDA standpoint in wanting us to get this submitted as soon as we can so they can treat it consider it under the existing fiscal year and dollars per award that they have. And for whatever reason it isn't awarded, but we feel pretty confident double award. For whatever reason it wasn't, that have an additional year or two be considered under as well. So nothing has changed in the overall narrative other than the cost anticipation. There are multiple sets of bids and numbers. We still have a bid that is less than this $2.8 million. What we're trying to avoid is that we have a letter of support that shows $600,000 of local match being approved, and then a project that comes in with a higher bill that we don't have local match designated for. So I still feel good in the sense that it will be less than the ask, but we would rather plan on more and pay less than put ourselves in a position where we are awarded a grant for less money than the project is actually going to cost. Some of the feedback we got from federal EDA even months ago was we'd like to even see a little bit higher price tag or a little bit larger project. So it seems that EDA is hungry to fund a construction project in this area. So we would like to take advantage of that possibility as well, and the opportunity that we have to get a little bit more than $2 million of federal match for this project.
Does this include the heating and cooling system that needs to be readjusted as well?
No, this is not part of the HVAC consideration or the roof units itself, no. It includes all other mechanical components for that lower level, but doesn't get into the outdated R22 units we have on the roof right now.
Can we throw them in there or not?
No, we did talk about that, but it is outside the scope of what this project does. It doesn't really provide an advantage to that lower level. It's more the second and third floors that it addresses.
Okay, thank you.
But we did ask.
Other questions?
If we get the 80% instead of 70, would you take that out of building improvements? Or would you spread that across the three categories, the savings?
Either approach would be doable. The difference being right now you have two of those funds that are already set aside reserve funds. They're non-levy impacting, they're non-budgetary impacting. The Fund 11 is the only budgetary impact number out there right now. So let's say that materializes and we say that, okay, $600,000, the bill we're going to spend on the Fund 25, you still find a reserve happening at the end of the year for the unspent dollars of $300,000 in Fund 11, which then turns into reserve. So the change at the end of the year isn't drastically different one way or the other. I just wanted to point out that the 300,000 isn't over and above what was already approved. That's already sitting there as a placeholder in Fund 11 in 2024. So in reality, by the end of this fiscal year, those are all going to be reserve dollars because the project isn't going to happen in the next 4 months. But if the board felt strongly in any direction there, I don't have concerns about how that shifting or allocation of funds happens. There's just over $300,000 in that CARES fund altogether. So I've been trying to buy that one down to zero over the last few years with various projects like this. More in the ARPA fund itself, but that would just about expend what is still there in the CARES fund.
So this letter of commitment, is that what kicks the grant into high gear?
Well, it's necessary for submittal of the grant. So if we have to fill out a budget, and I say we very liberally, Tina has to fill out a budget, is filling out this paperwork in the federal EDA. And whatever we say is the anticipated project cost, we have to provide a letter of support for the local match. So we can't submit an application that says it's going to cost us, but we're only going to kick in $500,000. Okay. The EDA has been asking us on a regular basis, hey, when are you going to get that application?
So you're looking for a motion to approve?
I'm ultimately looking for adoption of resolution 2024-27, which amends the previous resolution 2024-21, I think it was. Yeah. So it's all the same language and same commitment. It's just recognizing that the board's already taken previous action. This is an amendment with new action with a new cost.
So I would move to approve resolution 2024-27, letter of commitment for local match of federal EDA infrastructure grant.
We have a motion, is there a second?
Second.
Motion by Commissioner Krause, second by Commissioner Christopherson. Any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor, aye. Aye. Those opposed, same sign. Motion carries.
Thank you.
Thank you. Next is under action item is letter E, which is language modification for JD1 and JD5.
Yeah, thank you. And thank you for the addition of this one. Just a really quick cleanup item, as you see on the screen. Trying to find a blend here that you can see, but it's not chaotic. Simply looking to swap joint county ditch 1 assignments with joint county ditch 5 to clear up where we are the majority. We're the majority on ditch 5, but we show ourselves as the minority. We're the minority on ditch 1, where we show ourselves as the majority. So nothing is changing in the language. It's just taking Hargett, Christopherson, Krause, and moving them to 5, putting Hargett and Christopherson up to ditch 1. This is just on your board assignment list that you approved in January. But as we approved that by action, thought it appropriate to come back and tweak it by additional action as well too. So this cleans up our records in the land and water side for as they advertise, as they begin to go through some redetermination processes. They have to be able to cite correctly who the majority shareholder is on that system, yes, but also the representative commissioners of that decision-making body.
All right,
I move it.
we have a motion, is there a second? Yep. Motion by Commissioner Walter, second by Commissioner Milbrath. Any other discussion? All those in favor, aye? Aye. Those opposed, same sign, that motion carries. Administration update.
Thank you. Just a couple of quick things. You'll have an email from Beth in your inbox about that annual meeting for AMC. If you could let her know fairly soon. She'd like to get that wrapped up today, if at all possible, before any of those room blocks are starting to fill up. That tends to happen rather quickly with that annual conference in December. That's the 9th through 11th, I think. You don't quote me on that, but I think that's what sticks out in my head. So if we follow up with that, that'd be great. Or maybe even so, the assumption likely will be that you are going, and let her know if you're not. Because after today, she'll start making those reservations or as of today, under the assumption that you are going. Just some housekeeping items there, because we got that notification out now, and those rooms fill up quickly. Good news on the Goose Lake Park. Thank you for your support of that. I think that'll be a great opportunity to continue to invest in this case, partner with minimal investment, utilizing some existing dollar sources out there. So appreciative of that support and what will be the solution over the next few years in partnership. We had our SHIP grant award. Are you going to talk on that at all?
I can.
Okay, well, just, I can just briefly mention that's something Mr. Tomford and Tina were working on as well. That's in consideration of courthouse park, so that included some sitting benches, a bench swing, 2 hydration stations, a bike rack, a bike fixing station. I'm missing anything or not, but nice to get that award as well too. So several $1,000s of infrastructure that will be going into Courthouse Park in the next few months as well to supplement that. The hydration stations in 2 different areas of the park are just kind of what they sound like. It's a combination of pet bowl filling stations for dogs or what have you, as well as bottle fillers and drinking fountains and things. So strategically located in a couple places in the park to utilize. Continuing budget conversations, of course. So thank you for the additional time this morning. Of course, staff will be requesting approval of a preliminary levy from you folks 2 weeks from today on September 17th. My current program looks at a 1.5% levy ask for preliminary. That's continuing to what I'm working on and working through. As you know, that can change in the December, but my current program calls for a 1.5% levy increase, which would be the cap, the maximum if that was what was authorized. And if there are any other, I do have some additional conversation on the public health side of things that will come back to you, but if there are any other of our major program areas that you're looking for additional information on, we have one more slated work session next week, the 10th, dedicated to budget. So if there are additional items you'd like to see, please let me know. We will have another conversation on appropriations as well. Bringing it to what Mr. Ziegler brought up this morning as well too. we started to get into the appropriations list, but didn't get all the way through that conversation. So I'll bring that back to you one more time. In immediacy, just to put you on the spot a little bit, is there anything that you would absolutely like to see more information on as we move forward? Otherwise, next week I would plan to have an updated budget summary for you, that one-page spreadsheet. I know there are still some conversations happening at the mid-prairie level, and depending upon the outcome of those conversations, changes the budget a little bit more. Shouldn't really say drastically, but in terms of percentage, more drastically than we would have planned. So continuing to work through those and getting some revised numbers from Mid-Prairie. That all commissioners meeting is this Friday. So keeping that in mind as a placeholder for your schedules in Steele County.
What time?
OPU, I think. 9. Is it 9?
9 o'clock, I believe.
Okay. Yeah. And Owatonna Public Utilities.
What's the work session next Tuesday at 8, Michael?
The work session next Tuesday is strictly budget. That's what I was saying. I'll bring that revised budget summary and capture any changes that have happened in the program since the last time we chatted, which have been fairly minor. The only ones really that affect all areas are work comp numbers that we got updated. Not huge money, but adds changes some dollars and cents in pretty much all of those areas. Still waiting to hear on health insurance, which is kind of the largest point of anxiety in my mind in terms of unknowns that we may not really get good information on until after a preliminary levy is approved, which is ideal, of course. And then also waiting to hear when we'll have our audit numbers, which has been a point of frustration in my mind as well, with not having those as of yet. The biggest ask of our audit agency last year, when we didn't get a discussion from them, a presentation from them until the beginning of October, was we have to have this information in July next year so that we have some time to air it out relative to decision-making processes for the future budgets. Obviously, that hasn't happened yet. So if we get that preliminary draft, at least in the next week, we'll feel a little bit better in terms of things like reserve numbers and how we're specifically approaching that. I did give you an estimate of those and did get that advanced estimate from Baker Tilly, but it's only that, an estimate.
Does everyone on the board feel we have nothing for public health? Or do you want Sarah to come back again?
So just to clarify that, sorry to interrupt, I wasn't planning on bringing her back. I was planning on bringing the written narrative for Leanne and Sarah to, as far as, yeah,
Okay.
yeah, but obviously they can come back if that's easier.
No, that's fine. The written narrative.
Yeah, I just, sorry. If you come back next Tuesday, comfortable with the 1.5 preliminary, still having some questions on some of these departments, do you feel like we need to air that out ahead of the preliminary, or do we have more discussions when we get toward final?
I think both. And why I say that is because we don't know and won't know by next week what some of those additional funding sources and grant dollars could be for public health. Sarah did mention that in her presentation, and I don't think we'll have that information even 2 weeks from today. So the promise, if you will, even at that point when she was here, was this number's going to go down by the end of the year. We just don't know by how much yet. So I think maybe both, for sure, The December meeting, yes, but perhaps some additional information is helpful in that, but there is going to be a little bit of we don't know what we don't know. What we do know, more over and above from our last meeting, is just getting the very preliminary $8 of cannabis, which is just, a couple $1,000s because it's not being sold or produced anywhere yet, so that's not surprising. So that's a small known, but still a much larger unknown. Also unknown and opportunity in terms of opioid dollars dedicated to some of the ongoing staffing programs. We are also exploring the drug task force cost and offset for next year, as was communicated as well for our area. But still have significant dollars that will be available. Significant is a relative term, $150,000 or so. Any other major program areas that you'd like to bring back or have a point of discomfort on?
Question. The planning and zoning, I've got dollars that are going into that to offset the new FTE there, Timo. But is that going to be reflected in that line item, or are we gonna show that increase without that revenue in there? You know what I mean?
Oh, sure.
Will that revenue be put into that budget so it offsets it?
So are you looking at your first version or your second version?
Oh, maybe I'm looking at too old of a version.
So if you look at this version, the most recent one.
Okay, yeah, I'm looking at the old one then.
Those revenues would be in there.
Okay, yeah.
And offset. So we can always pull up Munis and see specifically, budget versus actuals. And that's why when we come back 2 weeks from now, we ask for authorization of a preliminary budget and levy. The budget is just going to capture every single expenditure across the county, irrespective of any offsetting revenues or revenue sources. It's just total dollars spent on all programs. Not in any way, well, it is reflective of the levy, yes, but it isn't ever going to be a linear trend across the graph as we've looked at before too. You might have a budgetary increase of 20% from one year to the next and a levy increase of 1%. And we've had that. And a lot of times that's public works, large road infrastructure projects that we have dollar for dollar match on. We still capture those in the budget, but they aren't costing the levy anything. They're at zero in terms of levy impact. So there's that happening all over the place, which I was trying to identify in this. So it's more reflective of what's actually going on. So with that blue text, just indicating that there's some reserve funds being used in those. So if the commissioners want to explore, okay, well, what's the actual cost if we remove additional revenues from this picture? And some of that may be one-time projects happening, some of it may be staff or ongoing expenses as well. So it's often worth conversations.
You resend that to us?
Sure. Yep, absolutely. And then, as I mentioned, we'll get into this appropriations list some more too, and air that one out a little bit more. After that conversation with SWCD this morning, that adds a little bit more insight to that list in terms of making a decision as well. You have the HR resources handout in front of you. A couple of new hires, a sheriff's deputy, and then the IC poet cadet candidate. Sure, if you want to allude to that at all, since you happen to be sitting there, but Gavin Kritzek, our deputy, and then Braden Berg is our IC poet cadet candidate that we brought on as well.
Our deputy candidate will be starting on, expected start date is October 1st. And he'll be full-time, and the IC Poet candidate will be starting his schooling. That's a state-funded grant through the state of Minnesota. He'll be starting his schooling October 14th. It will be approximately 5 months or so. So sometime in the spring of 2025, he'll complete that schooling. And then once he passes his post-exam through the state of Minnesota, he'll be licensed and he'll be able to start with us in the FPO process. I would expect sometime in April to May of 2025. So during that time, he'll continue to communicate with us as he goes through his schooling process. So, but he won't actually be working until the spring of 2025.
Any other questions for Mike? Community development update. Good morning.
Hello. I just want to tag team a little bit first, Sam and Green. The EDA, City of Waseca's EDA has made a 5-year pledge. They just finished a 5-year pledge of $7,500 a year. And then for this upcoming fiscal, they made another commitment for another 5 years to give that same amount to Green Team, $7,500 a year, and for 5 years. And I just wanted to kind of reiterate, we was a part of the panelists on that celebration of ag, was able to share some of the things that were happening across the Waseca County. And some of the other things that they've done is brought some folks from Greater Mankato, their business retention and expansion, and they were able to tour 4 or 5 places here, Berry Pallets, Winnegar's, Midwest Extraction. I think some of you came to the happy hour that they did at networking at the end of that visit. We were able to do a workshop, bring in some really good entrepreneur support, and coming up, working with the city, they will again be doing a networking hour. Just they had requested that at the end of the people who attended the workshop in May asked for some more networking opportunities, and so Green Team is going to come and give support with that. They did pull me in. As Sam mentioned, they've done this strategic planning for another 5 years. I actually went over, participated in 2 or 3 of the planning sessions, as well as the focus group for ag, just to kind of make sure that Greater Mankato has perspective of where we are. If you looked at the map, Waseca is like right in the heart of the green scheme. I just want you to know how helpful they have been in all that we're doing. So if you had any consideration for that, let Michael know, that'd be great. Let's see if I had any other. I wanted to let you know Waldorf has published their code of ordinances, and they are now in place and functioning. And so the next thing that I'm going to help facilitate with them is they have, now that they have it adopted and published and enforced, they have some nuisance work they need to have done. And so I'm going to help them get it as far as I can. And then when Mame's busy season for construction, about October or so, I'll pull her in to finish off helping them take care of some code enforcement that they need to have done. Clinton, the city administrator for Janesville, will be back this week. So I will be connecting with him, and because they've lost their economic developer, we'll probably attend their September 11th meeting in Janesville. They have a couple of projects that they're working on. Waseca has a couple of, now that they have passed, the city of Waseca has passed the zoning ordinance related to cannabis. The city has a couple of ongoing projects that are involved with TIP and commercial abatement requests. So Michael and I have actually met with the city and just had some general conversations. Projects aren't anywhere near announcement yet, but just wanted you to know that yes, their ordinance did pass for the industrial zone 2. And so we'll be continuing to have those conversations with the city to let them know that we are supportive of them. I was able to go to the EDA meeting in New Richland, and thank you, Doug, for joining. Had a very good conversation with them. Coming out of that conversation, they have a Steeple Event Center that I'll be meeting with later this week and kind of seeing if I can help guide them to some resources. The city EDA, New Richland's EDA, did give them a small grant to help with some of their election work. And so they are going to meet with them and see if we can take a look at what their plans are and how to help them continue. I don't know if you saw in the paper, but they've lost their Mayo Clinic, it's now permanently closed. And so we're going to try and work on what are some of those things that we can draw traffic into New Richland.
That happened just since the meeting then?
Yeah. So Tony had mentioned he thought it was coming, and I saw it in the paper this weekend, over this long weekend, that it's happened. They got the official notice that it's permanently closed. And they closed another one permanently too. Waterville. Yeah.
And both of those are kind of the result of some flooding damage that.
I think there was some, in New Richland, there was some problems with the building. And yeah. So.
Sure.
Yeah. We had a Waseca County EDA meeting, which led to a work session last week where we could deep dive into conversation about selling EDA property and reviewing with the board what the processes are for an EDA to sell a piece of property. We know we have some interested people in that Janesville property, and so we're hoping to put everything together and do the process to start the bidding all over again under the right process for EDA. Had a good conversation with Zach on Friday about what it takes to make sure that we get the timing down right. And I had submitted a calendar timing thing, and he's saying, no, there are some things that we can do before the public hearing, so I'll be rewriting that. But the goal would be for us to be able to finish that process by the end of October. And so we're just know that we're working on that. And the other thing that we've been reviewing is the revolving loan fund policy and applications. And so we kind of deep dived into that at the work session also. So there is some work to be done, and we're working our way through that. We did submit the courthouse safe and secure grant application that went in on Monday, the 26th, August 26th. And I want to say thank you to Sheriff, because I was kind of coming in with zero knowledge, and he gave me a pretty good tour. And then everybody was very helpful on the security team to provide me with information on putting it together. So Denise was able to get an assessment done, and so I was thankful to staff all coming together for us to be able to get that application in. On the Forward project, I don't know if you remember Catherine from UM Extension, we've had a kickoff meeting between her and myself, and we'll do a small stakeholder meeting in later September. And so just know that that's happening in the background. Still meeting about every week and a half with John Croker at the city, still doing economic development stuff with the city of Waseca, so those things are still ongoing. And I think that's it for today.
questions for Tina?
Tina, are you busy enough?
Oh, yes. Michael did a check-in with me last week on how's it going. So I'm going to say that, the dust is starting to settle, and what I'm hoping this month is I hit the rhythm. I think all of the meets and greets are done, because it takes a while to say, here I am, and tell me what you do, and vice versa, right? And so I think it's settling, had a chance to visit the communities, so it's there. I am focusing on the workforce development grant this week, and so I had good meetings with Tammy last week, and Michael, reiterating with him, and I worked from home on Friday to pull together pieces, and then I'm meeting this afternoon with Brian. So I'm kind of hoping that gets the dust to clear and get us into the home stretch on the workforce development. So that's my focus this week more than anything, and settle in next week. But yeah, I love it. Thank you.
Well, we like having you. The EDA board likes having you.
Okay, good.
We went from doing very little to running in high gear, meeting almost every week.
Yeah.
Get caught up, so I think it's really good for the board and the people that are on it. And moving forward, I think the community is going to benefit a lot. So.
Well, I know we've had an empty seat for about a year or so for District 1, and Doug and I had an opportunity to visit in person with a gentleman who has agreed. So next meeting, you'll have an appointment to and so, yeah, so we've been able to communicate back and forth, and I think the fact that we are definitely busy, and that I can actually provide help to Steeple Event Center, and I think it kind of changed the perspective of what it is that the EDA is doing, and so, yeah.
Thank you.
Okay, you know where I am.
Thank you. All right, commissioner reports. Commissioner Walton, would you like to begin?
Let's see, our last meeting was the 20th. On the 20th, we had a work session, we had a board meeting, we served at the commissioner picnic, all staff picnic, which was awesome, great fun. Joint Ditch 6, we had a board meeting for that, just a short one to move things along, and then Commissioner Christopherson and I were over in Owatonna for our mid-Prairie meeting. On Wednesday, the 21st, I traveled up to Madden's and spent the 22nd and 23rd with the AMC board at the strategic planning retreat. And we did a deep dive into where AMC is going over the next 5 years, the work that we do and the work that we have to do, and you won't be surprised to know that we need to look at wages for particularly for our folks that work with the legislative, with our legislators. They can be poached at any time pretty easily at this point, and we've got some really pretty key people there that we wouldn't want to lose, Matt Hilgard being one of them. Let's see, then Monday the 26th, had an online meeting for SHAP with retreat planning. Then I was in here to Michael's office for a building committee meeting, and over to public health. Assistant Commissioner Myra Kunis came to visit us in Waseca County, and we had a very nice visit. And so was nice to have an assistant commissioner of public health in our little corner of the world. The 27th, we were all on the road tour, and it was great to see projects that we have done and also see things that we have to do. And so, and it was great to eat at the Red Leaf over in Richland. I think that's the first time I've been there, and it was great. It was awesome. 28th, 9 a.m., I did basic first aid right here in the annex with a bunch of other staff folks, and it was great and well done, and it was a great refresher for an hour. Then I met with Melissa on some HR stuff, and I appreciated getting her expertise on behalf of our library system. Let's see, then Thursday and Friday, I kind of worked from home, did the usual stuff there. Nice long weekend. I hope everybody enjoyed it. I, along with all of you, read some packets to get ready for today, and here we are.
Thank you, Commissioner. Commissioner Christopherson.
All right, going back to the 20th, we had the staff appreciation after the meeting, all of us, and we had been very that afternoon. On the 21st, we had a personnel. What's that personnel? That was, Min Prairie Personnel Committee on the 21st. And then on the 22nd, we had Highway Subcommittee, or Public Works, I should say. 26th was Monday, and that had P&Z Subcommittee in the morning. Then I went out to Public Health also with Commissioner Malter to meet the Assistant Commissioner. And then I went down to New Richland with Tina at the Richland EDA meeting. The 27th was road tour. 29th was, I had a meeting with Min Prairie, how to word this, but Steele County has had a fair amount of new staff, administrator, auditor, attorney. County attorney is also pretty new. There's been a lot of questions, a lot of things thrown at Min Prairie, and along with that was a financial. They wanted to do a deep dive into our financials to see if there was some improvements that could be made or efficiencies made. And I guess they're doing this with all their departments, doing it with staff. But with Min Prairie, there's a lot of redaction, a lot of things that you can't be giving out, information. So there was a delay in getting this information to them, what got Steele County worked out a little bit. So we had this meeting, aired out a bunch of concerns about the redaction process. Hopefully going forward, we are going to have some consultation to give us clarity on what needs to be redacted, what doesn't need to be redacted. Because that seems like that's the rub. And even our county attorneys don't necessarily on the same level as far as that process. So we got to get all our counties on the same level so we don't have this rub between the counties and Min Prairie. So we aired out a lot of things, and hopefully we can get on the right path with this. And then also we have a meeting this afternoon to set budget for Min Prairie, and then Friday will be all commissioners. We will present that to the all commission meeting. We've gotten it narrowed up pretty well. I shouldn't say we've got it narrowed up because mainly because our insurance numbers come in a lot better than anticipated. they were using what Steele County was assuming was gonna happen with them. But Steele County was kind of like where we were. We had a 3-year agreement that capped our increases, where Mid Prairie wasn't on that. So this year's jump isn't nearly as bad as what they thought. So, and after that, that was all till today.
Thanks, Commissioner Christopherson.
We're going back August 6th. We had it since August 6th.
I just went back to the 20th, the last meeting.
I'm still on August 6th. I don't know if I need it. So,
We did.
okay, so August 6th, we had a work session. We had a board meeting, and we had, I went to Homeland Security, the flood discussion. It was National Night Out, and then I'm in Woodville Township. The 10th, at CWC.
What's that?
Coffee with the commissioner.
Oh.
The 13th, we had work session again. On the 15th, we had canvassing board, and I had a meeting with Michael. On the 17th, CWC again. On the 19th, we had canvas meeting with government agencies. On the 20th, we had work session, a board meeting, and then we had lunch with employees. 24th, CWC. 27th, we had the highway road tour. On the 28th, I received a call about a driving situation out on the Snake Trail. I asked the individual to give the sheriff a call to address that issue. It's a school bus on the hill there right by old school Sherry's Dance. And a bus stop and almost a couple accidents last year, cars traveling fast. So I suggested that she give the sheriff a call to see if they could get more patrol up that way. And that brings us today with the work session and the board meeting.
Thank you, Commissioner. Commissioner Krause?
Yeah, going back to the 20th, I was visiting with Sam with Green Seed when I stepped out. Just going back to his supporters with his whole list there, and I was asking about the pork producers and the different pork industry people that he had on there and how they were involved and that sort of thing, and how I could further advance that or bring him more information as far as education, you know, as far as going back to the public, because that industry is just it's just crazy the pressure that they got from outside groups, you know, pushing on them. So that's why I had stepped out. But going back to the 20th, yeah, with that was the picnic, wasn't it? Yeah. Mm-hmm. Then in the afternoon, we had JD 30 meeting, and then Wednesday, the 21st, was EDA in the morning. And like I said before, that's really, we used to get together maybe, I don't know, once or twice or 3 times a year, and now that's really has taken off. Monday, the 26th, was P&Z in the morning at 9 a.m. That afternoon was HRC, and I think Doug might have said it, talked a little bit about HRC, did you?
I did not, I wasn't there.
Oh, yeah.
I went to the EDA.
That's right. So it's really become interesting at the HRC as far as their PPS rate and their rebase years. Their rebase years are 22, 25, and 28. And those rebase years are years that they want to have more expenses because they have to do the billing. So they have bigger expenses, so when they have billings, then they get a higher income. But it's really backwards as far as you're thinking, as far as, we should be more efficient and stuff. Well, it's just backwards because you gotta come up with all the bills first, put that money out, and then hopefully collect it later. So it is really a challenge over there. So, but I'm sure Doug will help us through that. So we'll get them back going somehow. But on the 27th was a road tour. That afternoon, Tuesday afternoon, I might get sidelined a little bit, but I think it was that afternoon I ran into Steve, or was it Scott, from Jones Hogan Smith.
Oh, Steve.
Steve, he was out on the road, and I had just went past him, and I turned around and caught back up with him, but he was out digging in township roads and finding the section markers. So, we had a conversation, and I said, well, what are other counties doing, Well, he said, if I heard him right, it was Freeborn and Mower County is almost like 80% done on section corners. And then he said, the cost for Waseca County for the same project, if it was done down in Freeborn, it'd be about $1,500. In Waseca County, it'd be around $5,000, 2 to 3 times more. Because they don't have the section corners found. So that was really interesting. I had not heard that before. So, but it's something for us to consider as we move into budgeting, if we're going to put a number away to continue if we do not get any more grants or anything. If we come up with a $50,000, $75,000, $100,000 area where we can, is that a line item that would have to be put on the budget, or would it be in the?
So it could happen a couple of different ways. You could identify existing funds as seed money, if you will, and a reserve account could be a reserve account under a different name. Or it could be a combination of every year we're going to budget $50,000, and we're going to continuously try to pursue projects every year. So maybe you had seed money of $200,000 put into this fund. You're going to budget $50,000 a year, and it's just a rolling balance of whatever projects we can contract and get done in a given year. Or if it's a different kind of program, if it's an applied to or subscribed to program per individual user, if the county is just really pursuing a township at a time, or maybe more strategically derived areas within townships, almost anything you want to accomplish can be accomplished. It's just like, what's the scope of the program? What are we trying to accomplish? Obviously, we're trying to accomplish lowering the cost to the end user by figuring out section corners and recording that information. But it's more so, are we trying to accomplish that in partnership with the individual owners, or instead of the individual owners having to do so? And basically creating the philosophy of the county is now responsible for this part of the process, identifying the section corners, that's the public data. And then you, as the owner, are responsible for whatever you want to do on your property. So it's really turning that $5,000 into the $1,500, and the county being the stopgap of that $3,500. That's what I'm seeing you budgeting for financing.
Yes.
The offset of that $3,500.
So where would we go from here?
Yeah, is that something that should be talked about at P and Z subcommittee? Or is it something that should be talked about at a work session?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's bigger than that. Even the P and Z, more work session would be appropriate. So, I mean, if you think about that list of funds I shared with you, our Fund 25 items or our reserve funds or assigned funds, it'd be one of those, like we have for broadband, for example. You know, it's very similar to what we're doing for broadband. The county is investing dollars in broadband that are a tangible benefit, pecuniary benefit to the constituents. But obviously it serves our purpose as well. It serves a goal of the county of being connected, of providing at least some source of connectivity to reliable, high-speed internet for all constituents. And that is a blend of cost-sharing efforts. They're ultimately still going to have to subscribe and pay for the service. We're providing the opportunity for them to be able to subscribe and pay for the service. So it's kind of the same concept here. You're providing them the ability to have a survey done at a reasonable or reduced price because the county has taken the initiative of identifying the public-facing data, if you will, the infrastructure piece.
How much of this discussion could be assisted by an AMC affiliate? Because they have a subgroup of county surveyors, because some counties have their own surveyors, or on the GIS side, I mean, without Travis in the room, he's responsible for the data largely that ends up on our GIS map. I don't know how our assessors work might, coordinate with that, but there's multiple departments here that would be affected by being able to provide this. I would say ask some questions at AMC and find out and get somebody to talk to us about what other counties do and how they do this. Because some counties have been doing this for a long time, and I'm sure different counties have different levels of how they do this. We should take a look at what some of those are instead of just trying to figure it out on our own. But I agree that this would be a great service to our constituents.
And there's been some one or two failures over the last 3 years at the AMC level because it's been an ongoing conversation and something, as Commissioner Walter was just saying, every county is approaching it a little differently. Some counties have been investing in this for years under the same intent and purpose that you're mentioning, public service aspect of it. So that, I'm not saying that all that's an issue, it's not. It's just what the county deems is one, the best discretionary use of funds, and coupled with the public service being provided, that's what you do for every department and every service that happens. You decide it's an essential service and start budgeting appropriately to make sure that it happens. In the past, so we don't have an elected surveyor, of course, but in the past, 40 years ago, at this point, we had by ordinance a surveyor, a county surveyor, that followed a fee schedule, and that could be relatively easy to accomplish going forward. The board could appoint a county surveyor, which would be a company in a 4-year term or less, but on a rate sheet essentially, and say that we want to spend $50,000 a year on locates, and have them build out a plan accordingly. And say, we want you to start here and then go here and focus on here. It's great, of course, to say we've found every section corner in the entirety of the county, but as we all know, 80% of that area is much less likely to be developed or surveyed or utilized. So it makes sense to identify a project area first. So here's where we start, and then put the dollars toward it to make it happen. Every one you find makes the next one easier to find. that's never gonna cease. So as long as there's competitive funding out there, we'll chase it. It's just the reality that we'll be talking about it a decade from now if it's only that effort that we're pursuing.
Any other comments? Ideas? Otherwise, I'll continue on. But thank you for that. Wait, you did mention the courthouse park. I stopped out there and the kids get that circle or that octagon circle. What is it?
Ball.
What's it called?
Gaga ball.
Yeah, Gaga ball out there on the old basketball court. I seen that. It was pretty cool. And I think that brings us to, unless I skipped a week, that brings us to today, I think. With board meeting this morning, then there's a Farm Bureau meeting tonight. At 6. Yes, I don't know if any, Mr. Commissioner Milbrat and I were going to go.
We've got budget meeting at 4. I would hope we'd be out of it. I was on the fence on it, I guess.
I did not RSVP.
I didn't either. Seems like it'd be at the back of the line in case there's something left over.
I went last year, I think I was the only one last year, but they may ask us to speak, so I'll have just a couple items. Which,
Referral questions to Commissioner Krause.
yeah, sure. I'll refer them back. But, okay. All right, that's enough on me.
Thanks, Commissioner Krause. On the 20th, work session at 8 a.m., board at 9:30 in the commissioner picnic. On the 21st, I met in the juror's room of the courthouse for the safe and secure courthouse at 12 p.m. 8 a.m. on Thursday, the 22nd, for Public Works. Monday, the 26th, noon, building and grounds for Commissioner Walter in Michael's office. 27th was, like we said, the road tour. 28th, I met with Chris Howard about some Gator Lake updates. Brings us to today. What I have. Is there any other business to come before this board? Hearing none, I would accept a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
And I would second that.
Motion by Commissioner Christopherson, second by Commissioner Krause. Any discussion? All those in favor, aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, same sign. Motion carries 11:34. Thank you.
Is Mary Jo